to those who lost their lives during the demonstrations.
Having reflected on the continuing conversation around the content of the Finance Bill 2024 and listening keenly to the people of Kenya who have said loudly that they want nothing to do with this Finance Bill 2024, I concede, and therefore I will not sign the 2024 Finance Bill, and it shall subsequently be withdrawn, and I have agreed with these members that that becomes our collective position.
Recapping the top story, a special meeting of the ANC's NEC in March resolved to allow members who face criminal charges and stepped aside to attend sittings in legislative bodies and committees. It comes after criticism that the former Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Zizi Kodwa had been sworn in despite facing corruption charges. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, it's cricket. The Proteas have secured a T20 World Cup final spot with a 9-wicket win over Afghanistan. And in soccer, Bafana draw 1-1 with Mozambique in their COSAFA Cup opener. All these stories and more just before 6:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's a pretty good news report to kick it off on the traffic front. The R21 North off-ramp to Fort Trekker Road opened up around 1 or 2 a.m. this morning. That's following yesterday's morning truck crash, but the scene has finally been cleared, and you can come up the R21 and off-ramp into Kempton Park or into the top end of the airport again. Durban's M4 is clear of any roadworks this morning. The run through Congella in towards City Centre looking fine. It will be busy later with that closure of Brook Street for the demolition of China Mall still in place, but the main carriageway running up through Congella clear of works. Cape Town Chapman's Peak Drive remaining closed. Oak-Up Sedek again, the alternative route for motorists going on or off the South Peninsula. Chappies hopefully will be opened for this weekend. I'm Rob Byrne. SAFM Sunrise starts now.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
6 minutes after 6. Good morning. Welcome to SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. I feel like I have a cabinet crisis this morning, right? Let me just explain the problem. Is that we've now been without a cabinet for so long that I've literally run out of jokes about being without a cabinet. That's how serious this problem is. So, that's my cabinet joke this morning. That we've literally, now, a week later, finally, my wife says, run out of jokes about not having a cabinet. Anyway, yes, I don't know if you've seen one. Talking of cabinets, by the way, we may need fairly soon a trophy cabinet for the Proteas, because they, as you heard from Zaya, are now through to the final of the T20 Men's Cricket World Cup. Demolished is going to be the word that you see. Demolished Afghanistan. Afghanistan were all out for a very, very small total. Just really not able to cope, it seems. Just very, very good news from the Proteas. We had plans for this morning. We had all sorts of plans about how we were going to incorporate the cricket sort of minute by minute into the show, and then before the show even starts, the Proteas go and say, cheers, Afghanistan, we're done here, and then move on into the final. That final Saturday evening, by the way, sort of late Saturday afternoon, our time will be very, very interesting to watch it. So we don't yet have a cabinet. A little bit of reporting sort of this morning about what's going on. It seemed to me very interesting over the last 48 hours that all the political parties seemed quite quiet, which was quite a nice change, really. And I wondered if maybe that suggested they were getting a bit closer together. It's hard to know with these things, but I wondered if maybe it was a sign they were getting close together. Certainly very complex negotiations, very difficult negotiations. Maybe we'll get an announcement today. Who knows? Very difficult to say, but it does seem we're at the kind of final agreement stage of this, and I think people are going to just have to accept things. There's a report this morning, this was in Daily Maverick, about the ANC in Gauteng, which they say has been meeting with the DA, but has also been meeting with the EFF and Umkhonto we Sizwe. And we know that the ANC in Gauteng still has those local agreements, and I think local government will be the next sort of issue in this. With the EFF, they've been working with the EFF in Joburg and Ekurhuleni, despite what seemed to be a decision by the ANC's national leadership, by their NEC, to say that actually you don't get to work with the EFF in Ekurhuleni and Joburg. That decision, goes back 6 months, but the Gauteng ANC still been doing it now. we may be in a situation where, I can't see how surely the Gauteng ANC would sort of do a deal that doesn't involve the DA in Gauteng. So, I don't know. To be fair, I think the National ANC's been meeting with the EFF and MK too, just to sort of, extend conversations and continue with these conversations. So still, really no clarity, and no clarity at this stage on when we'll actually have the announcement. That's the other thing, is we don't know when the announcement will come. The rand losing a little bit of value, I think, partially as a result of that. We'll discuss that in a while and hear from business as well about what they would like to see in this cabinet, and just talk about this other idea that I think is going to come through today, pushed really by former President Thabo Mbeki, but with other groups as well, talking about a sort of national convention or national dialogue, or whatever the right phrase is. I think there are many things going on in the background around that. There's a story in the DRC, 2 of our soldiers dying, 2 SANDF soldiers dying in a mortar attack that seems to have been by the M23 rebel group there in the town of Sake, that's in North Kivu in the eastern DRC. In fact, there's a report in Business Day from Erica Gibson, who really knows her stuff when it comes to defense. Apparently, one of the soldiers died while waiting for an ambulance, and they're sort of, I think, using the town hospital. And I remember at the start of this, when our soldiers went there, and what people said was that really it's about attack helicopters. If you're going to succeed in that kind of fighting, it's jungle there, you need attack helicopters. We don't have attack helicopters at the moment, or not ones that are working, and so, you really need attack helicopters. And that's sort of one of the things that I think needs to maybe be sorted out. There's a story in a couple of media outlets this morning about Ronaldo Gous. He's the person who was a DA MP. He's currently suspended after that video emerged of him just saying the most incredibly violent, racist comments. I'm not at all going to quote what he said. As I think I said to you last week, I lasted 10 seconds on that video and just had to stop watching it. It was so awful. Anyway, that video had been deleted a long time ago, resurfaced. He was suspended by the DA as a result. And it seems that someone, I can't imagine why you would do this, started a campaign for him on the website Back a Buddy, which allows you to basically give money to people quite easily. Back a Buddy have said no ways, and they've taken that down. But he had 50,000 rand. Who gives money to racism, basically? Isn't that what you were doing? I find that, really, I find that utterly astonishing, this story. And actually, in a way, in quite a chilling way, quite sort of scary, actually. As I was going through those stories this morning, I was like, wow, that's actually quite scary, to think that people would give money to someone like that. I found that very, very, very disturbing. Busisi Mqobani, she's an EFF MP, former public protector, of course. She's been talking to SABC News. She says her family's being persecuted because of reports that she had received money from the Guptas, and this came, I think, in 2019. Those reports came from, but she says that her son's property has been attached. I was very intrigued in that story. I don't kind of know who would be running that campaign. She has the support of a political party that she works for, presumably. Her husband is an MP for Mkhonto weSizwe, David Skosana. He was sworn in during that big ceremony earlier this week. And it is, as far as I know, the first time we've had 2 people married to each other representing different parties as MPs in Parliament. I'm sure around the world, actually, you find that it's happened very rarely, but very interesting. And she says her family is being persecuted. So a very difficult situation. The jobs numbers coming out yesterday showing we've lost again, a large number of jobs, and again we have the problem around creating employment. And then Joburg Water in the news as well. Because of the Rand water maintenance. This has been a big issue, and in fact plenty of places around Joburg battling a little bit with water at the moment. I happen to live in one of them, and we wait to see when the water comes back. What I hope doesn't happen is, when people say the reservoir is filling and nothing happens, that. And the other thing that happens is that when this happened where I live last year, earlier in the year actually, all of the pipes in the area started to burst, and then you have these huge holes where people have tried to fix them. Just a sort of nightmare. So I'm really hoping that doesn't happen this time. What was it we learned during that time? When pipes are under pressure, they go long and thin, and when you stop the pressure, they become short and fat. And that means that they break. One of the sort of laws of physics of pipes. There you go. And then in Kenya, we'll talk more about it with seaports in the news as well. William Ruto, the president, quite a big U-turn. Not very often you will see a leader anywhere push a project as he has. You have the violent protest, or the protest that ended up with violence from the police in Kenya. He wanted the army on the streets, earlier in the week. And then suddenly he just says, I'm not going to sign this. You've spoken and I hear you and I'm not going to do it. It's a big, big thing, I think, in lots of different ways. Very, very interesting to watch how that plays out. Well, good to have you along with us this morning. You know the number, 086 000 2032, SMS 41391. You tweet SFM Radio and at Stephen Grootes. You send your WhatsApp voice notes to 0614104107. Still a lot to happen, and we'll obviously focus a bit on the situation around the cabinet and what we can learn from that. And then your mediated conversation this morning is around Mpox. Thought it was time to sort of put a few experts together and just find out a bit more about the disease, and in particular why it might have a bit of an impact in our society. Good morning. It's just gone 6:15.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
And Musa, good morning. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good morning, Stephen.
How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. Yourself?
Well, water's nice. Anyway, what's happening today?
The swearing in of corruption-accused Zizi Kodwa as a member of the National Assembly has left some questions on the step-aside resolution of the ANC, and Kodwa recently resigned from his former role we know as the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, and also stepped aside from his roles in the ANC. That was following his court appearance in line with what he termed as strict compliance with the ANC's 55th Conference resolution on renewal and understanding, affirmed by the party itself at the time. So we're looking into that, some analysis on it. Azapo has condemned the delay in announcing the new cabinet. Johannesburg water updates on the maintenance project by Rand Water. Most Johannesburg water systems supplied by Econof, which includes Randburg, Roodepoort and Soweto, are currently low or empty when it comes to water. The case of an IEC official who is charged with contravention of the Electoral Act is expected to resume in the Pietermaritzburg Magistrates Court today. Musa Wenkosi Mnikati is accused of moving voter materials that was without a police escort, and the case was opened by the MK party. In Cape Town, Warren Lee Dennis, who handed himself over to police, is expected to appear in the Cape Town Magistrates Court, and that is alongside an alleged gang boss in connection with the murder of a city official, Wendy Kloppers, and she was gunned down on site at the Delft Symphony Way housing project in February last year, and it's believed that her murder is linked to construction mafia in the Western Cape.
It's a really important story, that, and all sorts of links in different directions as well to various cases and things. So really important just to keep an eye on that.
True. And just lastly, the case against the 5 people charged with the murder of 3 people and a one-year-old boy. They will formally apply for bail at the Molopo Magistrates Court, and the 3 victims were killed in 2019 and their bodies were allegedly dumped in pit toilets.
Oh, awful story. Thank you very much indeed, Anne Musa. We'll be listening on the radio 17 minutes after 6.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
Let's have a look at your weather around the country this morning. Tshwane, cloudy in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy, 8 and 19. Johannesburg, cloudy with morning fog, otherwise partly cloudy, 6 and 17. Vereeniging, cloudy, morning fog, otherwise partly cloudy, 4 and 17. Bombela, morning fog patches, otherwise cloudy, intermittent drizzle, 12 and 22. Polokwane, cloudy in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy, 5 and 21. Mahakeng, fine, becoming partly cloudy by the afternoon, 7 and 20. Vryburg, fine, becoming partly cloudy in the late afternoon, 3 and 21. Mangaung, fine, 1 and 21. Kimberley, fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon and the evening, 4 and 20. Uppington, fine, 8 and 24. Cape Town, fine, a light easterly wind, 13 and 24. George, fine, a light and variable wind, 11 and 21. Gqeberha, fine, a light and variable wind, 9 and 21. East London, fine, a light and variable wind in the morning, otherwise light to moderate towards midday, 14 and 22. eThekwini, partly cloudy, a light to moderate westerly wind, 16 and 23. Richards Bay, partly cloudy, isolated showers and rain, a light to moderate westerly wind, 17 and 22. And Pietermaritzburg, partly cloudy, becoming fine from the afternoon, 8 and 23.
Hello, your choice online.
Hi, I need you to help me make a choice.
Well, with Ford, you get to make your own choices. Like on a new Ford Ranger, Ford Puma, Ford Everest, and the Ford Tornado bus. There's a flexible deal for every budget at your nearest Ford dealership today. Limited time offer. Your Ford, your choice. T&Cs apply.
In the heart of darkness, a beacon of light emerges. A brand new season is coming your way with your 2024 Miss South Africa Top 30. Hosted by our reigning queen, Miss South Africa, we embark on a transformative journey. Join us for the spectacular new season of Crown Chasers.
Crown Chasers is back.
Starts 29 June at 8:30 p.m. only on S3 Open Up.
Attention tourism entrepreneurs, your success starts here. The Tourism Equity Fund is your gateway to growth. Whether you're looking to expand or innovate, call CIFA at 012-748-9600 or visit www.cifa.org.za. CIFA is a registered credit provider. Terms and conditions apply.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
19 minutes after 6 the time. Good morning to you. Well, in Gaza at the moment, the situation there appears to be getting worse and worse, with another 24 hours of intense attacks by Israeli warplanes using bombs to attack targets, while an assessment backed by the United Nations says 500,000 Palestinians are facing catastrophic levels of famine. At the same time, there's an argument about whether enough aid is getting through into Gaza. Israel claims it's not preventing aid from moving into Gaza. This has been really hotly disputed by Palestinians, by many other sources as well. Over 37,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since Israel started its offensive in response to the Hamas attacks in October last year. Naeem Jina is a senior researcher at the Mpumalanga Institute for Strategic Reflection. Naeem, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
Firstly, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claimed a few days ago that what he described as the intense phase of the war was about to end. Now we see this really intense bombing and the attacks underway at the moment from Israel. Is it possible to know what his aim is at the moment?
Well, the aims of the war, as he or his government have stated, have not been met, and it seems impossible that they will be met. Yet he wants to provide the Israeli population with some kind of a victory so that he can protect his government and himself, which means that unless something, some kind of external pressure is applied, these waves of attacks and bombings will continue.
The United Nations says 500,000 people are at risk of severe famine. Its language is actually very, very strong on this. I mean, there's obviously not enough food in Gaza, and there's now a very, very large number of people at a very, very high level of risk.
Yes, I mean, this has been the case now for many weeks. Aid is, or actually for many months. Even in the time when aid was getting in, it wasn't close to being enough for the population, and so what we're now seeing is a famine, no food available and no water available as well. There's also been deliberate attacks against water sources by the Israelis. So the attempt, it seems, is that those people who are not killed by or through the bombing will either be starved to death, or what's now happening is that many people are dying of disease with no sanitary, with bad sanitary conditions, no food, no water, etc. Disease is spreading, and of course, bodies lying in the rubble. Disease is spreading quite fast. And so the attempt really by the Israeli government is to, in a sense, clear out Gaza of Palestinians. I mean, this is what genocide means. This is what South Africa is saying at the International Court of Justice, and that's being perpetrated not only through the bombs but also through a lack of food and disease, etc.
Israel says it doesn't block aid from getting into Gaza. What is happening to aid? We know aid, as I understand it, is arriving at the border. What happens then?
It arrives at the border. I mean, so there's been two borders. The Egyptian one, which then was closed after the Israelis blocked that border. And then there's one border on the Israeli side, And there, firstly, the trucks go through multiple checks, and even on the Egyptian side, something like 5 or 6 checks. So a truck that arrives with aid could take literally weeks or months before it is actually able to cross the border. As I said, on the Egyptian side, that's not happening anymore. On the that border from Israel, what's also happening now is that there are groups of Israelis who are preventing the trucks from going in, blocking the trucks with their bodies, stoning trucks, trying to hijacking trucks, etc. So the meager amount of aid that is able to actually get to the border, very little of that actually gets past the border.
So just to understand that, Naeem, this is the first time I hear this. This is incredible. There are Israelis literally trying to stop aid getting into Gaza right now. I mean, civilians, this is not government policy. This is people holding protests trying to stop aid getting into Gaza.
Yes.
Sure. That's unbelievable. Within all of this, we've got there are other tensions in the area, particularly it seems with Hezbollah. Netanyahu claiming that the intense phase may be over. Why would he be changing strategy now? Is the international pressure beginning to tell? Has the US given him a deadline of some kind? Could there be a concern that he may end up in a war on two fronts?
A combination of those things. For one thing, that the US has been unhappy about the way that he's prosecuting the war, and this has been for months. They certainly haven't been putting the kind of pressure that would make any change, as we're now seeing, over the past few days. Some rhetoric, but not even strong. Even the rhetoric is not strong enough from the American side. However, there is on the American side, there is an election coming up, and that kind of has a role to play in what the rhetoric is. But Netanyahu also is now playing politics in the US, and the way he handles the war, would also determine how his support goes in the US. There's no love lost between him and Biden on the one hand, yet Biden kind of falls over himself to support Netanyahu. But the other point that you made is also important, and that is that the tensions between Israel and Lebanon have been increasing over the past few weeks. We saw those videos of released by Hezbollah of their drones and what seem like satellite pictures that show some of Israel's most secret installations, and that has kind of upped the ante. The extent of the attacks on both sides, the distance that the attacks are happening are much more, and Israel has been assassinating a few Hezbollah commanders, etc. So that could escalate. And remember that when I say tensions in that area, that there are tens of thousands of Israelis who have not been in their homes in that area since October. So for Israel, those tensions can become quite serious. So that's the second issue. But the third front, in a sense, is inside Israel, of course. And there, the protests that have been taking place for the return of the captives who are held in Gaza, those are continuing, escalating, and so Netanyahu's statements is also to address them. So when he says things are winding down, it's in a sense to make people happy that captives might be coming home, and then he escalates.
Naeem Jinnah, thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate the time and the explanation. Senior Researcher at the Map and Gubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection, 28 after 6.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, wow, gosh, that was quick.
Wow, yes, they will blink and you missed it. The Protea fire totally dominating Afghanistan with a brilliant all-round performance. What a real treat to watch them like this. They delivered a 9-wicket win, and this was their semi-final match against Afghanistan. Chasing a target of 57 runs, the Proteas reached 60 for 1 in just 8.5 overs, with Aidan Markram and Reza Hendricks leading the charge. Earlier, the South African bowlers dismantled the Afghan batting lineup, bowling them out for that mere 56 runs. Marco Jansen was the star, claiming 3 wickets and earning the Player of the Match award. Soccer action. Bafana got their COSAFA Cup campaign off to a 1-1 draw against Mozambique at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium last night. Bafana opened the scoring via Rishwan Dortley and led 1-0 at the break, but the Mambas hit back 20 minutes into the second half via Tumito Alfandenga to secure a share of the spoils. The result leaves South Africa and Mozambique level with Botswana and Eswatini, who drew 0-0 earlier in the day in Group A, all on 1 point. Now, soccer action elsewhere saw Georgia making history, reaching their first tournament knockout stage with a 2-0 win over Portugal, and this is at Euro 2024 action. Turkey beating the Czech Republic 2-1 in their final group game to secure a last 16 tie against Austria. And finally, boxing. Colin Nathan, a leading South African boxing trainer and manager, has expressed excitement about a new partnership with DAZN, a globally respected over-the-top sports streaming platform. Nathan believes this strategic partnership is a game changer for South African boxers.
It's a big move. It gives South African fighters a chance to be seen and heard on the African continent and internationally. This is the first time that Sub-Sahara is actually going to be doing a live DAZN event, and it's just going to go globally. There was DAZN in South Africa recently, but there was a geo-block on Sub-Saharan Africa, so this is the first time that it's actually going to go throughout Sub-Saharan Africa and obviously globally as well to all the territories. So I'm very excited about this.
We'll have a wrap of more sport for you at the top of the hour. For SFM, I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. In the next half hour, officials who make decisions that lead to government money being wasted, should they be held personally liable? We'll look at that. You're with SFM leading the conversation. Still no cabinet. 6:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, a special meeting of the ANC's NEC in March resolved to allow members who face criminal charges and stepped aside to attend sittings in legislative bodies and committees. This is contained in a letter signed by the party Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula. It comes after criticism that former Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Zizikoto had been sworn in despite facing corruption charges. The Nelspruit Magistrates Court has acquitted former Mpumalanga MEC for Finance Kumbuzo Holwane on 2 counts of rape. Holwane and his stepson were arrested in 2020 for the alleged rape of his 2 daughters who were aged 7 at the time. And a coup attempt in Bolivia has failed after the leader of the mutiny was arrested after military units earlier stormed the presidential and congressional precinct in the de facto capital La Paz. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Joburg's N3 north under pressure again this morning. It's a crash blocking 2 lanes. On top of that, left lane closure for the roadworks at Van Buren. So you got a really big early morning backlog of traffic heading up the N3 again from Eland's interchange. If you're coming from Spreadview, Germiston, you're coming from Albert and Oakdean side, you want to get up the N3 and N12 roads into Eland's, you'll get to that interchange, and then you'll sit all the way past the Cement Factory through Heldenace and up towards Van Buren. It's a big heavy queue. If you're on your way from the south to the airport for connections, flight connections, make sure you're hopping onto some alternative routes this morning. Durban, a crash, another one this morning between Umgena Road and Spaghetti Junction, N2 southbound, starting to backlog into that. Just stay with Durban. If you go to Durban, Pietermaritzburg every day, roadworks intensifying between Key Ridge and Hammersdale. There will be some permanent 24/7 lane closures going in from this Friday. That will reduce the amount of lanes available on the N3 from Friday right through until December. So it's all going to get a bit busy around there as well. Cape Town traffic, bit of a backlog coming up from Vangate Mall on the N7 North. north in towards Langa. That's a little bit unusual, just all jammed up over the N2 highway. And being a Thursday, it means a blast day today between Makanda and Fish River past the N2 national route, closed from 3 p.m. until 5 p.m. for blasting and clear up. During the 2-hour period, motorists will be diverted off the N2 and rerouted along the R72 coastal route option. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Intaleng Lechela, good morning.
Morning, Stephen. I hope you're good.
All good, thanks. How are the markets looking this morning? As good as the cricket, I hope?
Well, kind of is. Global markets seem to be on track to end the first half on an upbeat note. There's been spurred by tech stocks, notably the AI rally that has boosted equities. Now, zooming in on yesterday's performance, Wall Street ended the day in the green, digesting a number of economic prints. Meanwhile, in Asia, sentiment is quite different, with those stocks trading mostly lower amid much uncertainty about the interest rate outlook, while traders also braced for the release of a US inflation reading later this week, which could give us more directional cues on what the Fed could do next month. And back at home, volatility remains the name of the game. The JSE All Share down 0.4% in yesterday's close. In currency markets, the Rand making some gains, but this might not last long as traders eye local political developments. With that, the Rand is trading at 18.16 to the dollar.
And then Amazon, they're going to launch a store to try and fend off the Chinese e-commerce giants. Is this about Temu and Shein?
Definitely. Amazon has noted that Chinese e-commerce giants like Shein and Temu are eating away at its market share in the US as they sell clothes and lifestyle items at a discounted prices. In an attempt to tackle the issue, Amazon is set to launch a new section on its site dedicated to low-priced fashion and lifestyle items that will allow Chinese sellers to ship directly to US consumers. Now, this is according to the group's presentation. No date has been set for the store launch, but those close to the matter said could be launched around the third or fourth quarter of the year. Analysts say Amazon is making its boldest move yet to counter the rising threat from e-commerce newcomers Temu and Shein, both of which have connections to China. Now, the storefront will have a range of products which will be priced at $20 or less. Amazon will ship the products directly from China to the US with the goal of delivering them to shoppers within 9 to 11 days.
And then policy uncertainty in South Africa rising in the second quarter.
It comes as no surprise, Stephen, that policy uncertainty heightened in the second quarter. According to an index conducted by the Northwest University's Business School, the Policy Uncertainty Index edged further into negative territory in the second quarter. It's currently sitting at 68.3 points from 65.8 in the first quarter. This comes as uncertainties around the local political landscape amid the national elections weighed on sentiment. Now, an increase above 50 reflects heightened policy uncertainty, while a decline means reduced uncertainty. Now, policy uncertainty is seen to have an important implications for business confidence and the investment climate in the country. Amid the reporting period, we also had the GNU agreement come through, but Professor at the Northwest University, Raymond Parsons, said that news and the pending new cabinet came too late in the second quarter to positively influence the outcome.
Intaleng, thanks very much indeed. Intaleng back in an hour. More business news through the day here on SAFM.
Africa Update on SAFM Sunrise, a continental overview of current African affairs.
Ras Advocate Sipho Mansula, good morning.
Morning and Jumbo Africa to the listener.
What an interesting speech by the Kenyan President William Ruto yesterday. A real about turn, backing down from this new finance bill. You don't see that very often, a president pushing something and then just completely going the other way.
That is quite true, Stephen, but the latest development is that today we hear the word of the mixed Swahili and English. Tutatena Tuesday, it means see you on Thursday. It means that the young people there, they say they want to peacefully protest today wearing white for the fallen heroes and fallen people who have died since the issue of the tax bill or the finance bill 2024. But what is interesting also, his deputy, Stephen, is putting blame also on the National Intelligence Services Director General Haji, accusing of failing to adequately advise President Ruto on the bill, leading to the widespread of chaos and loss of life. We are aware that this, the DG of National Intelligence was also shifting the blame to the former President Uhuru Kenyatta, hence the Deputy President Rigathi, pleading also with the young people of Kenya to engage on a national dialogue. Yes, there is a debt, Stephen, the public debt in Kenya that William Ruto has to deal with, but at the same time they are pleading now for a national dialogue with the public servants as well as with the young people of Kenya.
And then Niger, Chad, Benin, they seem to be working together. Niger considering routing oil through Chad after a dispute with Benin.
Stephen, we've said it before here that there's been an internal security crisis and a diplomatic dispute between Niger and Benin. This oil pipeline is now Niger military leadership is saying they are considering routing it through Chad and Cameroon, and this as well as the option that of Nigeria. Remember that this crisis between between Niger and Benin, it is also have been the issues around ECOWAS, issues around the removal of Mohamed Bazoum, but at the same time, the Chinese investment between Benin as well as Chad and neighboring countries like Cameroon is what they wanted to see them growing. So hence Benin is moving its oil pipes through Chad and Cameroon.
And the International Monetary Fund, it's going to lend Zambia more money.
Even they're lending them more by money, taking us back to the issue of also the first story of Kenya, the issue of external debt and how to deal with the issues of poverty and drought. But the IMF has said that they have done the review of Zambia's extended credit facility and approved $569.6 million to assist the government of Zambia. This has been coming on, Stephen. Zambia is trying to come out of what Chilima once said that it's a debt restructuring process, how to deal with the challenges that Zambia has been facing in the past years coming from Edgar Lungu.
And then in Zimbabwe, it looks like there are talks in ZANU-PF to keep Emmerson Mnangagwa in power, to extend his term.
Stephen, this came out from a symposium yesterday, a litigation symposium themed elections on trial, understanding the electoral jurisprudence in the 2023 harmonized elections of Zimbabwe. Now, the opposition, President Douglas Muzwaro from MDC, saying that there's been a debate around the extension of term limit or to take the limit from 5 years to 7 years. They will definitely challenge it as the MDC. Despite that, we know the MDC, there was also the issue of the CCC that was passed in the parliament by giving ZANU-PF the 2/3. So there is no that there are some issues around the extension of the term or complete erasure of the presidential term limit in Zimbabwe.
And then in our archives, the 27th of June, 1977.
Today is an Independence Day. Even it used to be called French Somaliland 47 years ago. We talk of Djibouti. Djibouti was liberated from their French colonizer. Hence today it's a public holiday in Djibouti. It's now called the Republic of Djibouti. You have many military exercises and many military bases that are based in that area, Stephen, that was used to be called the French Somaliland. Asante sana SG. As was in the conversation, SAFM observing the youth man.
Ross Advocate Sipho Mantula, thank you very much indeed. Do appreciate it. Back, of course, tomorrow. More news from our continent through the day here on SAFM.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Good to hear from you this morning. Lots to talk about as always. Still awaiting the cabinet. Still awaiting more cabinet jokes as well, because I'm now fresh out. There's the cricket. We're through to the T20 Men's Cricket World Cup final. First time that team's been to a final. I think forever, maybe, for a very long time, certainly. Some people very excited about that. Conversations also, of course, about water in Joburg. Max on the line from Tshwane. Max, hi. The new government, has anyone seen it? Good morning.
Good morning. It looks like there is a lot of rumors that are coming in that they might have struck a deal where DA will get 6 ministry and 7 deputies, 3 for ISP and so on, 1 for Antipet and 1 for PA. I think it's getting there from the look of things, and it's an interesting time where they're saying maybe before Sunday.
Yes.
We might seen the whole situation coming on board. Very interesting time for that one, Stevens. I'll be very interested for my side to see which one the Patriotic Alliance they are getting, because for me, I wish that the space that was created by Undosi, the current Minister of Police, might be given to this guy, Gate Mackenzie.
Yeah.
But I've got another worry, Stevens. In Mpumalanga, we've got one big municipal called Bushbuck Ridge Municipal, Stevens.
Yeah.
The whole municipal, they don't have a stadium that is suitable for National First Division games, as we've got one team called Kruger United that have recently been promoted to National First Division. They will be forced to play the game at Kabukweni, almost in Nelspruit, while we've got a municipality that doesn't have any football ground that is suitable for the National First Division. I think it's time for whoever is involved there to smell the coffee, Stevie.
All right. No, Max, it's an important point. Thank you. I mean, it's nice to have a stadium in an area. It brings a whole sense of something, I think. Bonakele and Khayelitsha. Bonakele, hi, this is Kodwa. He's an MP.
Hey, Stephen, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm well. Go for it.
Look, I'm afraid about this. This step aside of ANC talking about, is it going to work, or is it something that they're just talking about and the renewal? I'm talking about the swearing in of Zizi Kodwa. What is going on here? Someone has been charged, but being sworn in. What's going on? Can someone give a clarity with regard to that, or what his name was on the list as according to what he said, and is just following the instructions of the party?
Yeah.
Well, what's going on, by the way?
I don't know, Bonakele. I mean, lots of reports this morning, including in our news bulletins, about an NEC decision that would allow people to sit in legislatures. But I think you're right. It raises serious questions. I mean, what's the point of the rule if you don't use it?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, no. This is a bit unfair to others. I'm saying this is not doubting, because I vote for the ANC and I will keep on voting for the ANC, except the time when former President Jacob Zuma was the president.
Okay.
That's the time when I didn't vote for the ANC. That must be clear to everyone who doesn't
Sure.
understand.
All right, no, Bonakele, we hear you. Thank you. On the line from Khayelitsha, 6:45.
Which is the best way to reach success? Is it best to go alone, so you can go fast? Or for many to go together, so they can go far? What if you need to go fast and far? At RMB, we believe the best way to success doesn't make you choose when both are possible. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Are you ready to buy or build your first home or buy a stand anywhere in South Africa? If you are a South African citizen, you and your spouse have never benefited from a government housing subsidy program, and your household income is between 3,501 and 22,000 Rand per month, your dream can be realized by applying for a first home finance subsidy. To apply, just log into the First Home Finance application online portal at firsthomefinance.co.za or call a call center agent on 010-085-2199 to assist you for free with completing your First Home Finance online application. Beware, applying for First Home Finance subsidy is free. Do not pay anyone when applying for the subsidy. The NHFC is an agency of the National Department of Human Settlements.
The world's best cooking show is coming to S3. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, Noma Uphumapi, and no matter your favorite dish, see if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Starts Saturday 13 July at 7:30 p.m. on S3 Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
13 minutes to 7. Good morning. In Tshwane, the chair of that council's Municipal Public Accounts Committee, Action SA's Kolofelo Morodi, says officials implicated in nearly 250 million rands worth of irregular expenditure must pay the money back from their own pockets. Well, let's speak to the chair of the Municipal Public Accounts Committee in Tshwane from Action SA, Kolofelo Morodi. Councillor Morodi, good morning.
Morning, Stephen, and morning to your listeners.
When we see this amount of money being spent, and as you say, spent in the wrong way or irregularly, what do you want to happen to the officials that made these decisions?
So maybe let me start off by clarifying that asking for a recovery is actually a collective effort, as MPAC is a team of 13 councillors. I happen to be the chair of that committee. It's comprised of the different political parties of council. So having said that, it is a requirement by Section 32 of the Municipal Finance Management Act that when officials spend money or have found that money was spent irregularly, that money should be recovered. So it's something that is provided for by the law. Circular 68 clearly spells out the process of what needs to happen. So it's not just something that we're making it up. It's just that as MPAC, we are making sure that we follow the law. We make sure that if there is an irregular expenditure, we have to make sure that that money is recovered from those that have found to have been negligent.
Is it always possible to know which official made which decision and whether that decision led to money being wasted and whether that official knew they were making the wrong decision at the time? I mean, that can be quite a difficult thing to prove.
Not necessarily, and I can maybe let me explain the process how it works. So in council you've got the executive and then you've got the legislature. So where we are part of the legislature, and when for example if there was a project, the AG Auditor General will come. They do an audit, and so they have several findings. And also, as a municipality, we've also got our own internal processes where they pick up the irregular. Sometimes you hear them talk about UIFW, that is your unauthorized, irregular, fruitless and wasteful expenditure. So that is very easy to pick up when you've got irregular expenditure in this case. And how we have done it, it has gone for a forensic audit. So we don't, it goes through forensics. They will do an audit, they investigate everyone who was involved in that transaction, and then they will make a recommendation to the committee to say, these are our findings, these are the individuals that we found acted negligibly in awarding this contract. So it is very easy to find because we are working on information that has been investigated by the forensics.
So, I mean, I understand all of that and that makes sense. I just can't remember it really happening before. I mean, has it really happened? Has it happened in Tshwane before?
No, actually, let me start by explaining this. So when we came in, Action SA came into government in 2021. We were part of the coalition, and the first thing I did as a chair was to recommend that we need to become a Section 79A committee. That means that we are given powers to be able to subpoena officials, but also to investigate any matter that council recommends to us or that we see. For example, if the Auditor General found a material irregularity somewhere, as MPAC, we can proactively go and look into it and then make recommendations to council. So I think adopting that becoming a Section 79A committee really gave us power to act. Recovery has been there. I mean, that Section 32 in the municipal structures, in the MFMA, has always been there, but I don't think there's been an appetite to implement it or really go after recovery, because unlike your authorized expenditure and those items, people just prefer to write off. But when you go after recovery, it's not, it's a lengthy process, but I think that it's something that needs to be done, especially given the fact that this impacts on service delivery. So our residents pay a lot of money in terms of rates and taxes, but they feel like they don't get value because when they read the headlines, they'll say Tshwane is involved in They've got a qualified audit. There's wasteful expenditure amounting to this. So they want to see consequence management. And that is what we've been championing with my colleagues, of course, because like I said to you, Stephen, it's a team effort. I don't work alone. There are other councillors from all the opposition, from the multi-party as well as the opposition. But what brought us together was the fact that we realized that corruption affects service delivery. And all of us want residents to have value for money.
Councillor, thank you. Caller fellow Morodi from Action SA is the chair of the Municipal Public Accounts Committee in Tshwane. I can't remember an official having to personally pay for decisions like this. I don't know if you can. 086 000 2032.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Heavy backlogs this morning on your way to Galuli's interchange. It's the roadworks that are there forever at Van Buren. It's a crash scene and a breakdown as well. So a full house of obstructions. N3 north between Van Buren and Galuli's. Traffic dreadful this morning. Big delays coming through from the N12, N3 at Elan's interchange. You saw a pretty jam-packed N3 just yesterday morning with volumes. This morning with all those obstructions, you can imagine how heavy it is. If you are coming around from Oakdean, Soweto, Southgate, Alberton, or up from Spruiteview, Phosphorus on your way to the airport for flight connections, avoid the N3. It is seriously going to hold you up this morning. The Mike 1 from Boyson through to Empire Road is slow already on that run through the Crown and double-decker section. Reports coming in of a truck trailer on fire. It's a side tipper on fire. N3 Durban bound around the Lions River exit. Just watch for some slowing traffic at that particular scene. The N2 running south, a crash before Spaghetti Junction has been cleared. So that traffic that was starting to backlog through to Inanda Road is starting to move again. Cape Town is smashed on the N1 inbound at the N7 Jakes Curville, Goodwood and Malmesbury exit. Behind that, traffic coming in from Belleville is backlogging through to Plattekloof Hill. So a very busy one on the N1 this morning into that scene. And the N7 North queuing up from Vangate Mall over the N2 in towards Langa territory. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Your geyser would have hot water, but SIPO overloaded the transformer with his illegal connection. You're late again, and the robots don't work. SIPO vandalized it for copper. The whole community doesn't have electricity because SIPO's been bridging everyone's meter for a small fee, and now the transformer has exploded due to overloading. Don't allow illegal connections by criminals to inconvenience you and your community. Report criminals to ESCOM on 0800 11 2722 or the SAPS. Save your transformer. Save lives.
So, a lady from Air Officini just turned 55, and although I'm still a spring chicken, there's a part of me that envies her, especially since she now qualifies for a Nedbank Electronic Optimum Plus account with capital guaranteed. Talk about FOMI, huh, voice man?
If you mean FOMO, then definitely, boss man. And she can earn up to 12.65% interest. Anyone over 55 can open theirs via the Nedbank Money app. Visit our website for more information. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credits provider. T's and C's apply.
SAFM 104 to 107. Nationwide.
5 minutes to 7. Good morning. Well, while we still wait for the announcement of a new cabinet, and we don't know which parties will get which ministries, it's emerged the DA has said in one of the leaked letters with the ANC that it would like to review the contracts of directors general in the departments its members would control. The DA says it worries that DGs appointed by the previous ANC government might try and sabotage or frustrate DA ministers, particularly when the ANC would still have the majority of the government. Ruben Maleka is the spokesperson for the Public Servants Association. Ruben, good morning and thanks for your time. You say you would fight this review of contracts of DGs. Why do you believe it's wrong?
Thank you very much. Good morning, SG and the listeners of SAFM. Indeed, it is wrong. It is also hypocritical of the DA by saying that they would start to also doing what they've been saying is wrong, catered deployment. Because we all know that DA went to court, fought the governing party about that they should reveal how they employ certain people in certain positions. So how would now, when we know that public servants naturally would be appointed not as politicians, but they would want to go back and review the contract of DGs in order to do catered deployment and send those that they can trust. So we cannot allow, as PSA being one of the majority trade unions in the country that DG belongs to, that they would be fully employed with contracts, and then a political party after elections believe that It's time to review that contract. We don't think that will be right, and it's not going to be done because we don't believe the laws of this country, especially the Labor Relations Act, allows employers to review contracts merely for the fact that there's a change of governance.
I'm sure on the law you're correct. Can you see, though, I mean, there are a lot of ways of looking at this. Could you see someone appointed by the previous ANC-only government working with the DA minister, and isn't that kind of the issue here? I mean, wouldn't the Patriotic Alliance too, or the IFP, or whoever, I mean, when the IFP was in the Home Affairs Ministry, there were always arguments about the position of Home Affairs Director General. I mean, wouldn't the tension lie there? And this gets to the heart of whether we believe our Directors General now are completely political independent or not. I think most people might fear that they're not completely independent.
DGs are public servants. DGs are professionals independent of political parties. And we always and reiterated as the PSA that all members, whether you're a DG, a gardener or a driver, you remain a public servant that serves the public, which is South Africans, not a political party. There will always be a change. There will always be dynamics politically that may lead to the situation where we are today, where you have no political party that is majority, or another political party becoming majority after this particular scenario of the GNU. But that will never and should never influence how public servants operate. Public servants must be loyal to the citizens. They serve the public. They don't serve political parties.
Okay,
and we believe that our members...
Sorry, Ruben, to interrupt you. We are going to be out of time in a moment. Can you put your hand on your heart and say that you believe that every single Director General in the government now is completely politically independent?
What's the difference with a gardener or a cleaner or a driver?
But the Director General makes very important decisions. I mean, Directors General are running the government right now because there are no ministers.
But what about a tea server that will serve a minister a tea?
No, sure, but Ruben, I think we can accept that someone who heads a department as Director General does may be a different case.
Of course, we believe that if you're an employee employed to serve in a department, it doesn't have to be an issue of, say, which political party is in governance. You serve the public, and we believe that the DGs where they are today, there are professionals employed to serve the public, and what they are employed to do must be executed, whether is DA in rule, whether ANC or EFF, they must still serve the public without compromise of the political situation.
Ruben Malekap, thank you. Spokesperson for the Public Servants Association. Really appreciate the time. Well, in a moment, we'll find out more about the calls for a national convention. There's a big event around that today. Also, the delay in appointing a new cabinet. What impact does that have on our economy? We'll hear from organised business. You're with SFM leading the conversation. It's 7 o'clock. Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, spotlight on ANC step-aside resolution and Joburg water update on maintenance project. Good morning. A special meeting of the ANC's NEC in March resolved to allow members who face criminal charges and stepped aside to attend sittings in legislative bodies and committees. This is contained in a letter signed by the party Secretary General Fikile Mbalula. It comes after criticism that former Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Zizi Kodwa had been sworn in despite facing corruption charges. Kodwa appeared in the Palm Ridge Magistrates Court earlier this month. Despite this, he was sworn in as a Member of Parliament for the ANC on Tuesday. Political analyst Lukhona Mnguni says a loophole has been created to bypass the ANC's step-aside resolution.
It appears in this instance that somebody has created some loophole because effectively there's no integrity committee report on Zizi Kodwa that prevents him from being sworn in as a member of parliament. Legally, of course, there's nothing wrong with him being, sworn in. But I think as part of what you may deem the renewal process, of the ANC, there's no doubt in my mind that the ANC is always going to struggle to do this renewal, because the stock of cadreship it has is not one that is, inspiring, untainted.
The Nelspruit Magistrates Court has acquitted former Mpumalanga MEC for Finance Kumbuzo Holwane on 2 counts of rape. Holwane and his stepson were arrested in 2020 for the alleged rape of his 2 daughters, who were aged 7 at the time. Magistrate Ricardo Clutas says the medical report presented do not confirm any evidence of penetration. Holwane has, however, been found guilty of assault. He will be charged on the 12th of July. He refused to comment after the verdict. Johannesburg Water says maintenance work conducted by Rand Water at the Zwartkopies pump station and Daleside booster station has been successfully completed, with both systems now operating at maximum capacity. The spokesperson Nombuso Shabalala says the water systems supplied by the Daleside pump station, including Orange Farm, Innerdale and Loli, remain low. Shabalala says those supplied by Zwartkopies are recovering steadily, although the Crown Gardens Reservoir and Eagle Nest Reservoir are still struggling.
Work is in progress at the Aikenhof pump station, which is currently pumping at 50%. Most Johannesburg water systems supplied by Aikenhof, which include Randburg, Rudeport and Soweto, are currently low or empty. Johannesburg Water continues to provide alternative water supply in all affected areas, while the maintenance work continues.
Parents who lost children in the Enyobeni Tavern tragedy in Scenery Park in the Eastern Cape have remembered them through a candle ceremony at the grave sites in East London. Yesterday marked 2 years since 21 young people lost their lives in the tavern. According to the final toxicology report, the teenagers died of suffocation due to overcrowding inside the tavern. Parents have, however, rejected this report. The parents say they are still looking for answers about the deaths of the children and are optimistic the inquest into their death, set to begin at the Mdantsane Magistrates Court, will soon give them the answers they deserve. One of the parents, Kulekile Ngandane, says they wish to erect a wall of remembrance to caution other learners from making the mistakes made by their children.
This day is quite important to us because we want to always remember this day when our children passed away, in such a way that we are looking for donors, for people who can make donations, so that we can make or create a wall of remembrance where all the names of the children who passed away in that incident will be there, so that the other youth can see that on this day this is what happened and the reason behind that.
Further failed, and finally a coup attempt in Bolivia has failed after the leader of the mutiny was arrested after military units earlier stormed the presidential and congressional precinct in the de facto capital La Paz. President Luis Arce urged citizens to take to the streets to defend the country's democracy. Latin American leaders across the board condemned threats to democratic and constitutional order in Bolivia as global condemnation quickly grew, as Sharon Bryce-Peace reports.
The arrested general was reportedly removed from his post on the eve of the attempted putsch that saw soldiers and armored vehicles gathered in the central square of the administrative capital, some breaching a door to the presidential palace. President Arce immediately swore in a new military commander who called for calm and order to be restored. Soldiers were later seen withdrawing from the square when police retook control of the plaza. General Zuniga was taken away by authorities, his destination not immediately known, but the public prosecutor's office said it was launching a criminal investigation. Sherman Bryce-Peace, SABC News, New York.
Recapping the top story, a special meeting of the ANC's NEC in March resolved to allow members who face criminal charges and stepped aside to attend sittings in legislative bodies and committees. It comes after criticism that former Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Zizi Kodwa had been sworn in despite facing corruption charges. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
And thank you. Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 307 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out. Do you think you're paying too much on your car insurance? 56-year-old Dylan said no to sky-high insurance premiums. He's now insured with Outsurance and only pays 756 Rand a month to insure his white 2023 Haval Jolion S. To follow in Dylan's footsteps, simply SMS out to 30754 for a quote. That's out to 30754. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports headlines. Cricket action. The Proteas storming into the T20 World Cup final with a massive squad effort, demolishing Afghanistan by 9 wickets. And in soccer action, Bafana and Mozambique fought to a nail-biting draw in their COSAFA Cup opener in Gqeberha. Details just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Stay super heavy on Joburg Gen 3 this morning. Everything going on there. Roadworks at Van Buren, a breakdown on the middle lane and a crash blocking a couple of lanes as well. Between Van Buren and Galuli's, traffic is dreadful. N12, N3 routes backlogging heavily through Elands all the way up to Galuli's. Behind that, the M2 arriving from Cleveland for links into the N3 north, pretty heavily backed up. Before you get there on the M2, there's also a crash in Denver causing delays heading away from Joburg out towards the Germiston area as well. Truck on fire. It's a side tipper around Lions River on the Durban-bound carriageway. Just watch for some slowing traffic approaching that scene. And if you're driving into Cape Town this morning, smash on the N1 inbound, just near the N7 Goodwood exit. That's pushing traffic heavily back towards the Plattercliff Hill area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
7:09. Good morning. You with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. Nice to have you along this Thursday morning. Still no cabinet, and just awaiting to see how it all develops. There are sort of indications that this idea, and coming largely from former President Thabo Mbeki, of a sort of national convention or a national dialogue. They're not quite the same thing. Maybe they are. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Also, the long wait for a cabinet. What does that do to our economy? What does business want from all of this? And then very importantly, we'll be talking about Mpox from 8:30. I just feel I don't know I understand enough about it. So that's your mediated conversation from 8:30. Good morning. It's 7:09.
Durban is open for business and investment. A large delegation from the United States of America, including captains of industry, business, investors, finances, decision makers, and high-profile leaders will attend the 2024 Resurgence Durban Conference to explore and maximize investment opportunities in Durban. Be part of the Resurgence Durban Conference taking place at the Durban ICC from the 17th to the 21st of July 2024. Durban is forging ahead with its plan of action that is aimed at boosting trade and investment within South Africa, the African continent, and the rest of the world. Businesses must register now to exhibit at the conference. Closing date is the 30th of June 2024. To register for the Resurgence Durban Conference and for more information, visit www.resurgenceconference.org.
37-year-old Tebogo got a really great deal on his car insurance premium from Outsurance. He pays an amazing 762 Rand per month to insure his white 2018 Ford Figo Ambiente. He now has extra cash every month to go out for a meal with his friends. Get an Outsurance quote today. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag SAFM Sunrise.
7:11. Good morning. Well, later today, the leaders of the foundations formed in the names of Thabo Mbeki, Ahmed Kathrada, Desmond and Leah Tutu, Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe, Steve Biko and several others are holding a press conference in which they're expected to call for there to be a national dialogue. Former President Thabo Mbeki in particular been proposing this idea over the last few months. He says that to resolve our problems, there needs to be a new kind of understanding. At the same time, of course, we're waiting for our new cabinet, and there's a suggestion from at least one political party that they would support something that sounds very similar to this. That leader is Musi Maimane from Build One South Africa. Musi, good morning.
Morning, and good morning, Stephen, and good morning to fellow South Africans.
You want a national convention. Is that the same as the national dialogue that is coming today?
Well, the concept of us having to articulate a plan about the future of this country is something that cannot be delayed. I'm not sure what is being called on later today, but even from the results center, I asked that the president convene a meeting with all 18 party leaders, because that's what South Africans have voted for, to be able to say, given that 70% of South Africans invariably, in some form or another, voted for parties that at some point endorsed the NDP or something, why don't we take that as a first base? It might have ideological leanings and you might disagree with those, but be able to build on from there. Because when you foreground the 7th administration with a plan that is tangible, that articulates what needs to be done, then and only then can you be able to go, okay, then here is the cabinet that will drive those. Because at this point in time, what it seems is happening is that an appointment of positions for position's sake as a start, and secondly, a deal between the ANC and the DA on the basis of who gets what and which DGs. Now, what happens when the political headwinds of coalition strike? Does that mean that the administration becomes unclear about what needs to be done? And secondly, does that mean that if the DA has an economic footprint that is, or view that is different to that of the ANC, are we going to have cabinet that is run almost as though federal states across all departments? It simply is unworkable, the route we're going at the moment.
Okay, I mean, if something like that were agreed to, would you then join the Government of National Unity or the coalition government? I mean, it seems difficult to see what role, as a party with only 2 seats, I'm afraid, you would be able to play in Parliament outside the government, well, maybe inside the government too, I suppose. But at this stage, are you certain of what your role is going to be?
Yeah, my role has always been the people of South Africa voted for us to go and fight for economic inclusion, for an education, for safety. And therefore, the first room that all South Africans have put us in is in the parliament. And therefore, you cannot just build a government of national unity without a constructive opposition that's able to hold that account. Even if at the convention you felt, okay, here is the plan, at least you are at the very basic knowing what you hold the government accountable for. And if you do join the government in that instance to form in the executive, for argument's sake, you would then be able to say, here is what we are all collectively advancing. And all South Africans, business, civil society, can hold you accountable to that and contribute to that. So at this stage in time, our party is very clear that we are going to hold, we are demanding on this plan so that we have a better understanding what the government is intent on doing. And whether to join or not to join becomes a function of that plan and tangibly what it aims to achieve. And so I'm comfortable that we will be in, if for all intensive purposes, the first room to be in is to be that of Parliament and ensuring that there's a constructive role that says, here's how the state must go, here's what 60 million South Africans expect, and if failing that, then you can be able to execute against that.
Musime Mani, thank you, leader at Build One South Africa. Just gone 7:15.
Agenda setting conversations of the day.
Well, you may remember just after the National Assembly elected Cyril Ramaphosa as president and the parties were negotiating and there were agreements flying about on WhatsApp around the new government, the rand started to get stronger. Investors, business people said they believed this was the right direction for our country to move in, to grow our economy, to generate jobs. Well, it's over a week now since Ramaphosa was inaugurated. We still don't have a cabinet. Some indications that maybe investors are losing a little bit of their optimism. The rand beginning to lose some value. Dr. Lumkile Mondi is a political economist and senior lecturer of economics and business science at Wits Business School. Dr. Mondi, good morning to you. When we have a long delay in forming a government, I mean, what signal is that sending to investors? It must look like the parties aren't agreeing. All right, Dr. Mondi, we seem to have lost you there. I don't know if you're still with us. All right.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're going to call you back. Dr. Lumkile Mondi, as you know, is, of course, senior lecturer in economics, and it does appear from what we can see that there are some problems with the formation of this government. I must say, to be fair, and many people have always said that this was going to be quite a difficult thing to do, difficult in the past to form cabinets anyway, just because of some of the variables and some of the factors that you have to actually take into account. Now you've got new parties doing it together, And as you've seen from some of the letters that have been leaked, how difficult all of this can be, and in a way, how complicated the entire process is. That said, government must continue. If government doesn't continue, well, then we're going to have other problems. Dr. Mondi back with us now. Lumkile Mondi, morning again. I mean, what signal is all of this sending to investors?
Well, I mean, what is important here, I think, for investors is the ability of all the political parties to bring a growth and a plan that is going to ensure a predictable future. So to the extent that it's taking very, very long, I think many investors are expecting that there'll be a fortune coming at the end of the tide. So there's quite a lot that South Africa has gone through, and we need to have a government that can work together with investors, with its own people being brought along to really change the tide, given that South Africa finds itself in an economic crisis and there's no party that is in majority. Therefore, everyone needs to put and play a role in the crafting of the new developmental agenda that South Africans are working on.
Would it be fair to say the longer we go without an agreement, the worse it's going to get? The more value the rand will lose, the more faith investors will lose?
One positive thing that we have, Stephen, is the fact that people are talking. I think if we had violence, we had a lot that's going on that's undermined the democratic process, there'll be much more concerns by business and private society as well. I think the fact that the delay is because people are trying to get everyone into the kitchen so that you cook this delicious meal, nicely spiced, so that it can be enjoyed by all, not only by a few to appease a few constituencies. I think that, in fact, is reassuring to many investors who really would like to see a much longer-term agenda that's agreed by all, where there's capable people implementing it, and South Africa can achieve its potential.
I presume there are key positions that people will be looking at. I mean, normally investors, business people will look at the finance ministry, for example. It seems Enoch Godongwana will probably, from what I can see, I can't see the ANC giving that up. Are there other positions that people will be looking to as well?
Absolutely. We are very concerned about the trade and industry portfolio, where basically, because of the ANC alliance, people that have been occupying this position are left with no business experience, completely historically against capital. So we really would like to see someone who has a deep understanding and also a history of relationship with capital, in this case with business. Because for us to re-industrialize, for us to be able to create those jobs that are important and therefore grow our economy, as we build new infrastructure to integrate into the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, we need business-oriented people. And I think probably there's very few in the ANC. Therefore, we look more on the GA side of it, given what they've done in the Western Cape.
It will be a big shift to go from Ephraim Patel, who I think will be very happy if I describe him as on the left, to someone from the DA. I mean, that would be a real shift.
That's what the voters voted for. That's why the ANC is 40%. That's why the DA is 20%, etc. So we want growth. We want opportunities. You cannot have a government that serves a few or politically connected, where infrastructure is failing and falling, where cost of doing business are rising. So this is the time to take those hard decisions that will only benefit not a few, but all the people of South Africa, because the cost of doing business, the cost of traveling, the availability of electricity and water is accessible to all. That's the new agenda that's taking us longer, but I think let's be patient and bring everyone into the kitchen so that we bring civil society also along at the National Convention, and in doing so we rebuild and achieve the promise that 1996 Constitution had put for us to do.
Dr. Lumkile Mondi, as always, thank you very much indeed. Senior Lecturer in the Department of Economics and Business Science at Wits Business School. You're with SFM, 21 minutes after 7. Alan McCorkey is the Chief Executive Officer of the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Alan, good morning to you and thank you for your time. That position of trade, industry and competition, I mean, it's really set policy. How important is that for you in the new cabinet?
Well, good morning, Stephen, and good morning to your listeners as well. Well, that's very key. I think that all the portfolios are important. I don't think that trade and industry is the only one that's important. I think that you want to have business policy certainty across the board, because whilst you may want to concentrate on what's happening on trade and policy, you may be having a very significant problem with safety and security. Ports not working, people stealing cables. That in itself would impact business in a very significant way. What's happening on the health side is going to impact business. What's happening on the development of skills, competences side, in terms of what's happening with higher education and our trajectory for building the skills that we need for this century and beyond is also going to be a very important factor. So there isn't one single variable that you can move for business as preferred. You need all of them working together in concert so that we can move aggressively forward.
I mean, could just a change in policy at the DTIC, the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, make a difference to the economy? Normally we look to finance, we look to sort of bigger economic policy in a way, but just that, could that make life a little easier for your members?
Well, it would make life easier for us to be working with people who really do understand what are the imperatives in terms of the things that we do need to do. And that requires all of us, by the way, not just people in government. It also requires us in business to think, in other words, to unlearn that which we think we already know. The world out there has changed. It's a completely different, new partners, new relationships. You see most of Europe moving to the right. These are the people that we're actually supposed to be working with. And the issue relating to leadership competencies in terms of development of skills, even in the private sector, becomes a very key consideration, because South African business people, by their nature, struggle to work in diverse environments. They struggle to work in a world where people don't actually speak English. So we've got many, many opportunities in Asia, we've got opportunities in South America, we've got opportunities in Africa, we've got opportunities in non-English speaking countries where we're doing very, very, very little trade. Those skills in terms of how do you work in a global environment, how do you work in an environment that's diverse, multicultural, and what are the things that we ourselves need to be conscious of are very, very, very key in terms of what we're trying to do into the future.
Are you worried about the delay? Does it worry you as organised business? We still don't have a cabinet, just over a week now?
Yeah, of course, any delay is going to worry us, but of course we're not the only people who've ever done a coalition. You know, these things take time. You know, they've taken longer periods in Belgium, in Holland, in Germany, in Israel, and places like that. So it's nothing. It's something new for South Africa, but certainly not anything new in terms of how global politics, when it comes to coalitions, happens. But of course, we are worried, because not only are we worried about the time delay, we're worried about what does it actually mean in terms of stability. Do we end up composing a government of national unity, or do we end up in a re-election? So none of those variables are certain at this particular point in time. They bring that element of complexity and uncertainty and ambiguity at this particular point in time. So people are going to take a wait and see approach.
Alan McCorkey, thank you, Chief Executive Officer of the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, 25 after 7.
At Specsavers, we're committed to offering affordable and professional eye care. That's why we're offering 1,500 Rand worth of savings with our winter promotion. Get a free frame up to the value of 1,500 Rand, or use the 1,500 Rand on one of our leading lens enhancements. To qualify, simply purchase a comprehensive eye examination and prescription frame and lenses. Book online or call your nearest store today. Specsavers, for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
Think bigger than just a banking partner. Think a team of specialized experts supporting you to make better financial decisions to enable your growth aspirations. Think a strategic partnership providing indispensable advice to help you make the right moves. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
Attention tourism entrepreneurs, your success starts here. The Tourism Equity Fund is your gateway to growth. Whether you're looking to expand or innovate, call CIFA at 012-748-9600 or visit www.cifa.org.za. CIFA is a registered credit provider. Terms and conditions apply.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. That game didn't last very long. Gosh, Afghanistan. Well done, the Proteas.
Yeah, Proteas unstoppable there. What a massive squad win. And I think they demolished Afghanistan's World Cup dream in a ruthless fashion this morning, thrashing Afghanistan by 9 wickets with more than 11 overs to spare to reach the final. Left arm wrist spinner Tabre Shamsi and pacer Marco Jansen spearheaded the rout, restricting Afghanistan to just 56 runs. Kagiso Rabada and Anrik Nortje maintained the relentless pressure, taking 2 wickets each. Despite losing Quinton de Kock early, Reza Hendricks and captain Aiden Markram led South Africa to victory at 60 for 1 in just 8.5 overs. The Proteas will face the winner of the England versus India final that's taking place today at 4:30 in the afternoon. Now, the England coach Andrew Mott is wary of the underperforming Indian superstar Virat Kohli. He could be taking out his frustrations against the defending champions in that World Cup semi-final. In the second round Super 8's win over Australia, Kohli was out for a 5-ball duck, and it's a worrying sequence for a player who has more than 4,100 runs in the format and an average of just under 49. Soccer action, the Bafana team got their COSAFA Cup campaign off to a 1-1 draw against Mozambique at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium last night. The result leaves South Africa and Mozambique level with Botswana and Eswatini. They drew 0-0 earlier in the day in Group A, all with just 1 point. Rugby now. Rassie Erasmus has confirmed Siya Kolisi will retain the Springbok captaincy for the July internationals while defending the flanker against criticism for being out of shape. Kolisi, who joined the Springboks at Twickenham for the opening test of the year against Wales, was amongst the World Cup winners recalled to a 39-man squad for the 2-test series against Ireland. Here's Rassie speaking about the underdog tag attached to the Springboks whenever they take on the Irish.
Well, if there's one team that's certainly got the upper hand, it just shows on paper that since 2016, I never want to make us the underdogs, and we don't want to be the underdogs. But I mean, the stats is there. We haven't beaten them since 2016.
Let's go to tennis action. Britain's Emma Raducanu saved a match point as she knocked out the world number 5 Jessica Pegula to reach the quarterfinals at Eastbourne. The 21-year-old wildcard Raducanu has never won against a top 10 opponent before. She rallied from a set down and saved a match point in the second set tie break before going on to win in a remarkable 4-6, 7-6, 7-5 victory. And finally, boxing, Anthony Joshua will face fellow Briton Daniel Dubois for the IBF heavyweight title. Wembley Stadium, 21st of September, the date. Undisputed champion Alexander Usyk vacated the belt yesterday, and interim champion Dubois was elevated to champion status as a result. More sport, top of the hour for SFM. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Well, more on the cricket in a little while. We hear from someone who also has been watching the game today. Look ahead to the final on Saturday. You're with SFM leading the conversation. Good morning. Still no cabinet. 7:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, a petition launched by concerned citizens has garnered nearly 10,000 signatures calling for the removal of newly sworn-in MP Andile Mqitama from Parliament. A 40-year-old man is expected to appear in the Cape Town Magistrates Court today alongside an alleged gang boss in connection with the murder of a city official, Wendy Kloppers. And the number of businesses filing to close shops has declined slightly. The figures from Stats SA shows the number of business liquidations decreased by 17.2% year-on-year in May 2024. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
N3 North out of the southern side of Joburg up to Galuli's really worth avoiding this morning. It really is a significant backlog. There's the long-term roadworks, a breakdown, a crash scene, all of that unfolding between Van Buren and Galuli's. It is by far the most major delay across the whole Gauteng province. The N12 onto the N3 backs from Voortrekker, the N3 itself backing from Rand Airport Road, and it's heavy across all lanes, trucks and vehicles all backed up through Van Buren on your way to Galuli's. If you're coming from the south, arriving from sort of Southgate, Soweto, Oakdean, Alberton, Germiston, Spraithview, Phosphorus, those sort of areas, and you want to get up through Galuli's, and that's your plan to get out to those flight connections to the airport or get to meetings sort of north of Galuli's or out towards Ekurhuleni, just to avoid it. The open, the sort of local alternatives are open and flowing. There's very little traffic around because it's school holidays, but those options are much more preferable than getting caught in that major N3 run to Galuli's. Very heavy. Coming that way as well, leaving Joburg, crash on the M2 around Denver, so very slow from the Benrose area, direction Germiston as you get caught in that one. The N1 this morning, Old Joburg through to New Road is busy, not as busy as it can be, but it's just a volume of traffic. Durban, just really the one big standout queue. That's the M2 moving from the M7 up through towards the Westwood Mall. Even that is showing signs that it is starting to ease. And the top end of the M4 is still struggling into central Durban because you've got that Brook Street closure for the demolition of China Mall. So just as you divert off the M4 causes a bit of peak hour pressure. And Cape Town, the crash on the M1 inbound at the N7. It's basically all shifted to the side of the road. All lanes open. The N1 is just under a bit of pressure from N1 City towards Kuburg at a change. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
And Taoleng, morning again. How are the markets this morning?
Kicking things off in Asia, those stocks taking a knock, trading mostly in the red. This despite green screens in the US. In the meantime, we saw the Japanese yen stabilize following a slide that triggered fresh speculations that policymakers will step in to support the currency. With that, Japan's Nikkei is down 0.93% and China's Shanghai index losing 0.7%. In Wall Street, futures retracing yesterday's gains in the red amid caution on the outlook of interest rates. A similar trend is playing out locally with the JSE closing mostly in negative territory. The all-share shed about 0.4% in yesterday's close. Over in the currency scene, the rand making slight gains. This, of course, ahead of that all-important cabinet announcement, currently sitting at 18.15 to the dollar from about 18.16 about an hour ago.
And then diamond sales at De Beers, they've declined.
So De Beers released an update showing that its rough diamond sales fell in its fifth cycle, coming in at $315 million, reflecting a near 18% decline. Now, company CEO Al Cook said the northern summer is generally a quieter period for rough diamond sales and added that this was reflected in its cycle 5 sales. Now, even with that being said, we've been seeing a decline of sales for the past few cycles. De Beers sold diamonds worth $383 million in its fourth cycle and $456 million in its fifth cycle of 2023. So there has been that slowdown coming through from last year. Now, the diamond industry has been facing many headwinds, including falling demand on the back of the popularity of lab-grown diamonds and as consumers held back on luxury spending in tough times. Despite this, Cook remains somewhat positive about the company's prospects, saying that the recent JCK jewelry show in America confirmed a resurgence in retailers' interest in natural diamonds in the US, but ongoing economic growth challenges in China means that it expects a protracted U-shaped recovery in demand.
The citrus trade battle between South Africa and the EU intensifies. Is it the EU or is it really Spain?
It's the EU with it's basically Spain sort of pushing through the EU's rules. So South Africa is hitting back at that, and it's requested the World Trade Organization to establish 2 panels to investigate what it claims are unscientific and discriminatory measures imposed by the EU on citrus exports. Now, this long-standing dispute involving the Agriculture and Trade Departments and the Citrus Growers Association has been ongoing for about a year now, with South Africa claiming that the EU's discriminatory practices could have a drastic impact on the local citrus industry. Now, the industry supports about 140,000 jobs at the farm level alone, and the export market, quite an important one, as South Africa is the world's second largest citrus exporter, just behind Spain.
Thank you very much indeed. Intal Lechele back tomorrow. More business news through the day here on SAFM. 24 minutes now to 8.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
All right, good to hear from you this morning. Still no cabinet, big conversations about it. You heard the conversation in Tshwane a little while ago around whether public officials should be held responsible, liable is probably the right word, for misspending money. We'll update you on the cricket in a little while and just look ahead to the big final on Saturday. Siyabonga and KwaZulu-Natal, hi. You heard that conversation in Tshwane. Public officials, should they be liable for irregular expenditure? What do you think?
Not definitely, but I just wanted to put a little bit of context that we need to be in a position where we understand what is irregular, wasteful, and fruitless expenditure. In instances where it's wasteful and it's fruitless, it basically means that you've wasted money and we did not derive benefits. But when you talk irregular, in most instances, it refers to the fact that you did not follow the right steps. It is possible that you will not follow the right steps, particularly in terms of procurement, but the benefits will still be derived from that. You'll still derive value for money. I just wanted to balance the conversation by raising that we need to be in a position where we are able to put context. If I make an example, if there's a need for the bridge to be built and people are unable to cross, you can follow the conventional procurement process, or you could go through a process where you use Regulation 36, which means that you don't follow a normal route. AG can come and says you are not supposed to do it. You are supposed to go through the conventional route. Therefore, that amount or expenditure is irregular. But the fact of the matter is the bridge is there and people are using it and they benefit out of it. I just wanted to give the context.
Siyabonga, thank you. I sometimes wonder if we're pushing too much together when we talk about fruitless and irregular and all of that. You know, that maybe we need to separate them a bit more?
Definitely. And even the leaders don't necessarily take time to define it and understand it. Irregular is all about process. Of course, clean governance means you must follow the process.
Yeah.
But we all know that sometimes it's impossible to follow the process. And then the investigation process must ask questions like, why did you not follow the process? Did you benefit from not following the process? Was the value for money derived from the process that we engaged in?
All right, Siyabonga, thank you. Really appreciate the clarity on the line from KwaZulu-Natal. Let's go to, is it Kishore in eThekwini, Durban? Hi. The DA's demands with the Government of National Unity.
Yes, hi, Stephen. Brilliant program. Yeah, I mean, what I'm trying to get at here is that, we as citizens must appreciate that, look, we might think the DA's demands are unreasonable, but they trying quite desperately to get the country right. And the fact is that not everyone's going to like what they're doing, but it's important that we have the right ministers in the portfolio who have got the work ethics and get the job done. I think the only thing that we have working for us here is SARS. And if had that collapsed, there would be no country here.
Yeah. All right, so you think the DA wasn't out of line when they did that?
No, of course not. If you're in a corporate world, you either pull your weight or you shipped out. That's exactly how the country must be run. Because it's taxpayers' money you're deriving here, and you're earning taxpayers' money.
All right, Kishore on the line from eThekwini. Interesting idea. Yep. No, I mean, I hear what you say. Patrick in Alberton, you have a suggestion for us. Good morning.
Morning, how are you?
I'm well, Patrick. Go for it.
Yeah, in fact, and my suggestion has to do with the congestion that we often find around the Crown Mines area.
This is in Joburg in the south.
Yes, there's been a lot of development there, and if you consider the infrastructure, we had that infrastructure since 1971.
Sure.
And that it doesn't suggest that there's been a lot, considering that there's been a lot of development around that area. Once there's a problem with a truck, maybe, when you dive into the M2 there, it is always a steep, and then trucks normally, they get stuck along that, and then it becomes it's so congested that no traffic can ever pass.
So what suggestion do you have then? I mean, how would you resolve it?
Yes, what can be done? Can you kindly invite the MMC for infrastructure insurance? We can see what can be done. I think this got to involve the national government or the provincial government as well.
All right, Patrick, thank you. There's a lot that happens around Crown Mines, I know, at the moment. And as you say, lots of development there. It's interesting. I mean, sometimes when you have congestion, it's very difficult to know how to resolve it and what you can do. And really, it's all about longer-term planning, I suppose. James in Zebedila, hi, the government.
Morning, Steve.
Morning, James. Go for it.
Yes, I just want to talk about the all parties who, before election, they're going out to the people to ask people for voting for them. Now they are busy detecting themselves instead to give people what they're promising people before they're voting them. It's like when you're voting the parties or leaders, it's like you're giving money, just go and show this money. Don't give me anything. It's what now is happening in South Africa, because all people are waiting for service delivery. People are not working. The kids for applying the NSFAS, they are not getting the fund. Everything is stucking now. They are busy going ahead, agreeing with sometimes, but think about us. We are still waiting now for now.
All right, now I hear you, James. I mean, you sound quite disappointed, almost frustrated.
Yeah.
No, I can hear that. All right, James and Zebedila, thank you. If you look at the history of South Africa over the last long time, I think you have a right to be a bit disappointed. It's 18 minutes now to 8.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation.
Well, we woke up this morning and I thought that we would have a cricket match to keep you updated on all the way through until around 7:30. It was the T20 World Cup semi-final against Afghanistan for the men's Proteas. Afghanistan, though, all out very, very quickly. Proteas sort of wrapping it up by 9 wickets. Aslam Kota is a cricket commentator, sports documentary producer for SuperSport TV. Aslam, good morning. A lot shorter than we thought it would be this morning.
Indeed, good morning. Certainly a cause for celebration. I did sit up and watch it for you and your listeners, and I must say that it was good to watch. Although having said that and knowing the fact that it was such a huge margin of victory in the end, it wasn't on the best of pitches for a semi-final. But be that as it may, in 22 attempts, that's in 50 overs and T20s, South Africa finally created the miracle that they always wanted. And now they're one step away from absolute glory.
Well, I mean, it's one step. It's quite a big step. We don't yet know who's going to be in the final. But, I mean, was this about the pitch? Was this about our bowlers, our pace attack maybe? Was it about the Afghan batters?
Well, it's a combination of factors, but one of it has to be the state of the pitch. I'm just also checking this morning that not Grant Flower, what's his brother's name? Andy Flower, the renowned player and former coach, was just saying that the Taruba Oval's pitch was certainly not good enough for this type of a contest. But having said that, I mean, it was important for the South African bowlers, having had to bowl first after the Afghanis won the toss and decided to bat first. And obviously that reason must have been clearly behind the fact that they were depending on scoreboard pressure. But the fact that they were then bowled out for 56 with fantastic performances from all of the seam bowlers, and then Shamsi also chipping in once again with another 3-wicket haul, was certainly the highlight. And Marco Jansen clearly got so much of movement and bounce, and so did Nokia and Rabada, who produced some fantastic deliveries to scare the batsmen, and then of course to produce the right ones to pick up the wickets. So it was just a wonderful all-round performance. And then an early loss as far as the wickets were concerned with Quinton de Kock, who's been the one form player in the top order. And the next two in Reza Hendricks and Markram, who are totally out of form, found form on a difficult pitch, put on a 50-run partnership, and South Africa home inside of 10 overs.
Sure. You've spoken to us before about the sort of vibe, the sense of things in the team. Do you get a sense now that the team is sort of coming together, that they're in the right kind of mindset? I mean, it's a big final. In a way, it's a big final just because we've just never managed to pull it off before. Do you get a sense that that kind of vibe is working? Rob Walter in particular, the coach?
Absolutely. I mean, you generally look for little chinks in the armor. You look for issues where you think that the team's having a problem, And in this contest, you have to say that apart from the fact that the top order batters and sometimes in the middle order haven't actually fired, the fact that they've made the right decisions all the way through is quite remarkable. And here I need to make a point about Aiden Markham. I mean, now it's 8 out of 8 in this particular contest. Way back in 2010, when he was the captain of the under-19 team, they won the under-19 World Cup in Dubai, if you remember. There it was 7 out of 7. And in the last World Cup that took place in 2022, it was 2 occasions in which he was asked to captain in the absence of the injured or the sick Rabada, I can't remember. And he won those 2 as well. So he has a phenomenal record as leader. And, so everything's just coming together in all the decision making and everything that they've done. And as I think I may have mentioned it to you, but they're certainly a happy camp. And the belief is there. I think 1 or 2 of the big victories that they had in between some of the closer ones against let's say, the lesser nations, has certainly buoyed the team. And you can see it in their body language, in just the way they're going about their work. And those are the little telltale signs that you look for in the team. And it's all there pretty much in the open, Stephen.
India against England, I think that semi-final is today to determine who we want to play against. I mean, who do we want to win?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you want to win the World Cup, you've got to beat the best. And whoever comes through, I mean, South Africa have to put their best game forward. They've got an extra day to perhaps just plan, and hopefully they get to Barbados in time so that they have time to prepare. Because the one thing I must mention also is that we just found out prior to the match starting this morning that there was a 4-hour delay for the Afghani team to get to Trinidad and Tobago, and that clearly didn't help them because they didn't get a chance to practice at the Oval, which they've not seen. So hopefully that doesn't happen to the South Africans, and that they will play well. As far as the 2 teams are concerned, India have gone into the semi-final unbeaten, and they've got better as the tournament have gone on, and some of the batters who've actually not had the best time out have also found great form, apart from Virat Kohli. So is he leaving his best for this afternoon? That's left to be seen. But England at the same time have become very good players, a very good team in cup competitions and in cup finals. So, you can't discount them at all. I reckon it's going to be a very good one. And as I said, whoever South Africa play, if you want to be the world champions, you got to beat the best.
Probably go past the 10 overs then, I suppose, Aslam. I mean, also, as we head into the final, everyone's going to be using that word, the word choke, because of what's happened to us in the past. And I'm, without even wanting to be reminded of Alan Donald, I don't know why, from, when was it, 1999. I mean, this is the moment to finally get that bogey off our back, isn't it? This is the moment to sort of get rid of that.
If you ask me, I think the question was asked first of all to Rob Walter, and he was pretty clear in that these guys have sort of unshackled all of that. And for me, I think the team themselves believe that there's something special that they're doing as a unit. Kagiso Rabada this morning in the media conference said the same thing, that we're here to win, and we're pretty confident that we can. So I think it's important to hear it from that side. But as far as we are concerned, I mean, the one thing I've tried very, very hard in all the years that I've been doing commentary and analyzing the South African team, I hate to use the word chokers, because if you've played sport, then these type of things just happen. And I think a lot of people forget that New Zealand and England, who've obviously been in a lot more competitions than South Africa have since South Africa's re-entry into cricket, they've, as I said, just been involved in 18 or 19 of these type of competitions. The others have been in there a lot more, and they've perennial.
We seem to have lost Aslam Kota there, but I think his point was well made that they're perennial losers. Aslam Kota, thank you. A cricket commentator, sports documentary producer at Supersport TV. 10 minutes to 8.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still well worth avoiding the N3 north into Galulis this morning. Big truck crash there before Galulis. It's between Van Buren and Galulis. A trucker on our WhatsApp's just gone past and said, "Yo, Rob, it's heavy. It could be a couple of hours before this scene is cleared." It involves a truck. It's quite a messy scene. And of course, you've got the roadworks there as well on top of it. So it really is very heavily backed up, quite by some distance. The heaviest delay around the Gauteng Highway networks this morning. So queuing queuing from Rand Airport on the N3, from Four Trekker Road on the N12, and it's queuing extremely heavily. Side roads and alternative routes are largely open and flowing. It is still a school holiday period. There is a real lack of traffic on those alternative routes, but the N3 is super heavily jammed. If you are coming from the south, you might want to consider routes like the N17 out towards sort of Sunwood Park, and then R21 Rondebolt Road option up towards the airport via Boxburg. It'll get you there in good time this morning. The N1 South busy across all lanes, but not as heavy as it can be. But you will pick up some queuing pressure there from Old Joburg down to New Road, which seems to be about the new normal these days. Peter Maritzburg driving to Durban, checks clear this morning through the Ashburton roadworks. Don't forget, from tomorrow, permanent closures going in between Key Ridge and Hammersdale, and that'll start to really put some pressure from time to time on that section of roadway. The lane closures to deal with then if you get crashes and breakdowns, which are probably inevitable in those big constructions. You may well find yourself dropping down the single lane sections from time to time, and all that fun and games from tomorrow. Cape Town, pretty easy Thursday run, although there's been a crash on the N7 South at the N1, so coming through from Bosmansdam Road on your way to Goodwood. Traffic starting to backlog there. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation.
8 minutes to 8 now, the time. Well, you know the number 086 000 2032, and there was a confirmation yesterday that Ben Lachrange, who was the CEO at Steinhoff International, the chief financial officer rather, has now been arrested, appearing in court yesterday, released on 150,000 rand bail, and of course worked for a very long time with the CEO at Steinhoff, Marcus Jooste. Jooste took his own life just before he was about to be arrested following the collapse of Steinhoff back in 2017. Kaiser Tulle is an independent analyst on matters financial and on accounting in particular. Kai, good morning. Thanks for your time this morning.
Good morning. Good morning to the listeners.
From what we know at the moment, I mean, what role did Lachrange play in all of this? How important was he in what happened at Steinhoff?
Well, he would have been a central player in his capacity as a chief financial officer, because if you do recall, one of the few indictments that was finalized against Marcus Jooste was the one that related to fraudulent financial reporting. In other words, the financial statements that they submitted to the regulators and the market were falsified. So naturally, the type of person who leads the process of financial reporting in those submissions would have been the chief financial officer. So he cannot be the type of person who's regarded as a minor player in this entire drama, who would have been heavily complicit in it. So now the big question, of course, is what exactly is the charge sheet against him? Is he simply seen as a person who inked into paper the type of instructions he was getting, or was he a person who himself knew that, well, in order for us to present a particular picture, a false picture, this what needs to be said differently, this what needs to be structured differently, and that's what we have to wait and find out when the case eventually gets underway.
So we see the progress in this investigation, and Marcus Jooste was the focal point, and he can no longer be, I suppose. I mean, do you think Lachrange will be the new focal point? I mean, I think there's still questions about what Jooste did, and in a way, the story's always going to be about him.
Yes, I think the CFO becomes the next biggest fish in the entire pond, because obviously, given the nature of his job and the type of activities and the type of powers that he would have had, you kind of imagine that he has to explain exactly how he understood the various transactions that they were doing and the various shenanigans that they're getting up to. So he's not a person who can plead a sense of innocence. But what is also quite important is that obviously for the prosecutors, you still need to be able to say there was this massive fraud that was perpetrated and somebody's been held accountable. And now that Marcus Jooste is unfortunately not here, he becomes a big target alongside the person who would have enabled all the legal agreements to be put together and all the legal structures to create the type of house of cards that we saw. So the two that are now obviously on trial, the CFO and the head of legal, are indeed the biggest fish after the CEO.
Obviously, in the wake of Steinhoff, in the wake of what's happened in other places, in the wake of the state capture era, there's been big investigations, big sort of discussions around how auditing and all the rest should change. If I remember correctly, I think Erber announced a big increase in the number of fines for audit, in the amount of fines that auditors would have to pay fairly recently. Do you get a sense that everyone's beginning to work together to deal with this, to try and prevent a Steinhoff from happening again? I mean, there'll always be accounting scandals, I suppose, but are we making progress and making it harder?
It is difficult to know whether progress is being made because unfortunately all the different role players have done their reactions or they've done their reforms at very different intervals. So we haven't seen the full spectrum of new rules and regulations being brought to bear to one single case and to see whether that case would actually have materially different outcomes. So obviously what the regulators have said that, well, perhaps when you look at the auditing side, there were issues that needed to be addressed there, so the regulators have done that job then. The JSE has had to look at some of its own processes. The Financial Sector Conduct Authority has had to look at some of its own systems. But what is missing in the conversation is the question of what it is that those are responsible for overseeing these organizations. In other words, the board of directors, whether they themselves have started doing things differently in order to pick up these types of issues early enough for them to intervene. Because if you do not have them playing their part in reforming their processes, the possibility of this recurring will always be there.
I suppose, Kaya, also you need a deterrent. You need people to know that if you do this, there will be severe consequences. And this is why the sort of criminal or the police investigations are so important.
Yeah, and it would be nice if people could be able to see a linear, a pathway between action and consequences. And I think in this particular instance, we still haven't seen that. And of course, in the absence of that sort of linear progress, people are always going to labor under the impression that when it comes to white-collar crimes, it is much easier to get away. The deeper your pockets are, regardless of where you source those funds, ironically, the more likely you are to get away. And that is not a good thing for the rule of law, because you don't want to live in a society where people think, well, go and steal as much as you can, just don't be stupid enough to get caught.
Kaya Sithole, thanks very much indeed, independent financial accounting analyst. Really appreciate the time. 2 minutes to 8.
At SFM Radio and at Stephen Grootes on Twitter.
Good to hear from you this morning. John on the line from Kimberley. John, hi. Helen Ziller, the chair of the DA's Federal Council. I presume this is about the coalition discussions?
Yes, Stephen. You know why is there still a deadlock?
Why?
Did you know Helen Ziller kissed the speaker on the cheek?
Yeah.
Did you know about it?
I don't know about that. Toko Didiza, you mean?
Yes. He
Yeah.
kissed her on the cheek.
So-
That kiss of Helen Ziller is very dangerous.
Hey, John. Come on, John.
She kissed Rompelo on the left.
I remember
They are
that.
gone right now.
Yeah.
Now she kissed the current speaker on the cheek. Now we have a stalemate.
Oh, John.
And you know what? I strongly believe she kissed Malema on the forehead. That's why the EFF is still 9 and 11%.
Don't be nasty, John. Come on. Don't be nasty. All right, John. Thank you. On the line there from Kimberley. Yeah, well, look, I mean, you're allowed your own view, but don't be nasty. Come on. Very interesting to sort of see how people feel about this. Let's go to Dwaisa on the line about political analysis. Dwaisa, you've got me on in the background, I think. If you could just switch me off, please. Don't like to say that too often, but if you could just switch me off, I would appreciate it. All right, Dwaisa, you're in the Eastern Cape. Let's try now. Dwaisa, hi.
Morning, Stephen, and to SA listeners.
Go for it, quickly if you can.
I'll be very quick. I've observed with a serious concern the kind of bias when political analysts are analyzing certain situations. Actually, I've observed this just before elections, during and after, and in fact even now currently. And just even to give you one example, I happened to listen to one of your sister radio stations last week, Wednesday to be precise. And the gentleman there, I'm afraid not to I'd like not to mention the name. He was saying all negative things about Cyril Ramaphosa. And of course, we are not saying he's a saint, and we're not saying that political analysts should not criticize. But my view is that they should give us a balanced view and let us make up our own minds. And lastly, recently, another same gentleman, political analyst, was actually a kind of supporting the former impeached Judge Hlophe
Yeah.
as being a leader of the newly informed MK party to Parliament, saying that
the judges got his case wrongly. They failed to interpret it in a proper civil.
All right.
Actually, he was supposing it, but then it's quite concerning.
All right, Dwayne, I'm afraid I do have to leave it there. I hear you. It's one of the reasons we don't use one analyst. It's one of the reasons we use a variety of people to get different views. I think it's sort of part of the point, if you like, of having these conversations. Here at SAFM, leading the conversation, it's 8 o'clock. Essential cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43517 now.
In our top stories, a petition to remove newly sworn-in MK Party MP and suspect in murder of Wendy Kloppers to appear in court. Good morning. A petition launched by concerned citizens has garnered nearly 10,000 signatures calling for the removal of newly sworn-in MP Andile Mqitama from Parliament. The petition accuses Mqitama, a member of the Umkhonto weSizwe Party, of perpetuating hate speech and urges the South African Human Rights Commission to take legal action against him. This comes after a video taken 5 years ago at a BLF event went viral, showing him making threatening statements about white people. AfriForum CEO Kali Kriel has expressed his support for the petition.
Even in the lower courts, that this kind of behavior can be seen as figurative speech. It's something that's not acceptable, and that is why we're now going to the Constitutional Court with regard to the Julius Malema Kill the Boer song, because also in that regard, it was said that it was figurative speech. But the problem is with that, one should not look at what people say their intention is when they say that. We should see what a reasonable person would feel when they hear that. And if you hear this kind of statements that children and women should be killed, it is harmful, it is hurtful.
Meanwhile, Mqitama says he's not concerned about the calls for his removal from Parliament, as he was previously exonerated for his remarks by the Equality Court.
AfriForum took me to the Equality Court, and the matter was dismissed. The Equality Court was able to see the context in which I made that statement. I was responding to Johan Rupert, who had said in an interview with Stephen McCarthy that he has a private army in the taxi industry. Now, the taxi industry, our people get killed, murdered, children, women, indiscriminately. And here is this man who is threatening violence upon black people.
A special meeting of the ANC's NEC in March resolved to allow members who face criminal charges and stepped aside to attend sittings in legislative bodies and committees. This is contained in a letter signed by the party's Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula. It comes after criticism that former Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Zizi Kodwa had been sworn in despite facing corruption charges. Kodwa appeared in the Palmer Ridge Magistrates Court earlier this month. Despite this, he was sworn in as a Member of Parliament for the ANC on Tuesday. Political analyst Luko Namguni says a loophole has been created to bypass the ANC's step-aside resolution.
It appears in this instance that somebody has created some loophole because effectively there's no integrity committee report on Zizi Kodwa that prevents him from being sworn in as a member of parliament. Legally, of course, there's nothing wrong with him being, sworn in. But I think as part of what you may deem the renewal process of the ANC, there's no doubt in my mind that the ANC is always going to struggle to do this renewal, because the stock of leadership it has is not one that is, inspiring, untainted.
A 40-year-old man is expected to appear in the Cape Town Magistrates Court today alongside an alleged gang boss in connection with the murder of a city official, Wendy Kloppers. She was gunned down on site at the Delft Symphony Way housing project in February last year. Another woman on site was shot and wounded. Murder accused Warren Lee Dennis handed himself over to police earlier this week. He faces charges of murder, attempted murder, the illegal possession of a firearm and ammunition. Kloppers' murder is said to be linked to construction mafia in the Western Cape. The number of businesses filing to close shops has declined slightly. The figures from Stats SA shows the number of businesses liquidations decreased by 17.2% year-on-year in May this year. This figure represents a decline of 26 liquidations from a total of 151 in May the previous year to 125 in May this year. The 125 liquidations recorded include 11 compulsory and 114 voluntary liquidations. Stats SA survey statistician Onika Mushwana explains.
Broken down by the type of institution, 74 companies and 51 closed corporations shut their doors in May 2024. The number of company closures decreased by 17 cases year-on-year. The number of liquidations by closed corporations declined by 9 cases over the same period. In the first 5 months of 2024, the number of liquidations decreased by 5.3% compared with the 5 months of 2023.
Recapping the top story, a petition launched by concerned citizens has garnered nearly 10,000 signatures calling for the removal of newly sworn-in MP Andile Mngxitama from Parliament. For SAFM News, I'm Anne Musa.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and R1 million liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today, SMS CAR to 43517. Forget everything else for a moment and listen to this. Outsurance Essential is a custom-designed and perfectly priced car insurance product available to owners of unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at under 125,000 Rand. But the real game changer is the fact that your claim is paid out in cash, which gives you the freedom to choose any panel beater of your choice. SMS CAR to 43187 for an Outsurance Essential quote. That's CAR to 43187. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, it's cricket. A historic win for the Proteas as they are through to the finals of the ICC T20 World Cup. And we also have athletics news as Team South Africa, they head to training camps in France. All this and more just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
No change on the N3 highway. The run into Galudes coming from the south stays very heavy. A truck crash between Van Buren and Galudes. Traffic is backlogged on the N3 to Rand Airport, deep into Germiston. On the N12 east around to Voortrekker Road in Alberton. Stay off that route. Use some alternatives, particularly if you need to get up and through Galudes for airport flight connections. You'll need to get some alternative routes to avoid that one. Durban side this morning, not looking too bad. As we mentioned earlier, the N2 north on the run through from the Spaghetti Junction area is looking a lot better now. It's busy, but it is starting to ease. There is a breakdown on the N3 outbound just after Spaghetti Junction. So N2 south through the interchange, linking out towards Pavilions, currently being held up. And Cape Town, a crash on the N7 southbound at the N1 highway. That's backlogging traffic reasonably heavily coming through from the Bosmansdam and Plattekloof roadside direction. Goodwoods. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
9 after 8, good morning, you're with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. Well, we'll find out in a moment more about what happened in the DRC. Our soldiers, unfortunately, 2 SANDF soldiers losing their lives there. And again, the sort of question around, do they have enough support? We'll look at that. We'll look finally at radioactive rhinos. Yes, we'll speak to the expert on that today. And then Mpox, everything you need to know about Mpox, why it seems to be spreading. We'll be looking at that from 8:30 this morning. I think that's going to be quite important. You know the number, 086-000-2032. Lots to talk about. No cabinet still. Conversations around how those discussions are going. Some of the new MPs raising questions as well this morning. It's 10 after 8.
Municipal services play a vital role in keeping our city safe, clean and functional. By paying for municipal services like your water bill, you're investing in the future of the city of Johannesburg's water supply. Paying for your services is not just a transaction, but a commitment to the sustainability of your community. Let's continue to pave the way for a brighter tomorrow, one payment at a time. Brought to you by Johannesburg Water, a water utility that cares.
Are you ready to take your brand to a whole new level? Have you ever thought about how big companies use strong PR to get more people to know about their brands? The Allure Group presents the inaugural Building a Brand Through PR Masterclass. Join us on Wednesday, July 3rd from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the DP World Wonders Stadium in Johannesburg. Learn from 12 industry experts as they share their case studies and personal testimonies that will transform your approach to brand building. Visit www.prmasterclass.co.za to get your tickets. Only 650 rands for an in-person experience, or join us virtually for just 350 rands. Don't miss this chance to master the art of PR and take your brand to the next level. Building a brand through PR Masterclass, powered by independent media.
And we will buy 500 cars, and we will buy 500 more. Just to be the one who buys your car, will come to you and offer more. We buy cars, we buy cars. We buy cars, we buy cars.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Agenda setting conversations of the day.
Good to hear from you this morning. You know the number. Romakgadi on the line from Burgersfort. Romakgadi, please remind me, Burgersfort in Mpumalanga, Northwest?
It is an area situated between the border of Mpumalanga and Limpopo.
Oh, right. Thank you, Romakgadi. Thank you for that. You want to talk about Andile Mqitama, new MP from Mkhonto weSizwe, and comments he's made. There's a bit of a fuss about it.
Yeah, Stephen, good morning, and once again for taking my call. I've been trying to call, I don't know for how many years. But my issue is I'm not a fan of Mqitama, but his ideas are related to my situation.
Okay.
But the matter here is the issue that is currently on a platform of him being impeached because of what he did. But you guys are following that, but you are failing to attend the burning issue of Rupert, the man who openly said he sponsored the violence that has killed children and men and women.
Who said they sponsored that violence? Are you talking about?
No, okay. This is the issue that was raised before you came in. There was an interview that the man was interviewed, but that story you are not following, and that is not the first time. There was a guy who robbed people's funds, and then apparently he was shot. He shot himself. Nobody followed him, and then we keep on raising this. People have keep on raising these issues. You have been selective. Why don't you call Ruben and come and answer the questions regarding the utterance of that he made?
Are you talking about Johan Rupert?
Yes.
But I don't think he did make those comments. And Mqitama says that he made those comments, but I don't know that he did.
Follow the story, Chief. Follow the story. He was interviewed or check. Maybe there's someone who was listening during the time I was listening. He can come and confirm that. Rupert, he said, he sponsored the what you call the army. The guy come out clearly in the national radio. He's got an army. He's sponsoring taxi violence, but nobody's following him.
So look, I must just say, Romakgadi, I can see where Andile Mqitama has made the claim. Just hold on a second. I can see where he's made the claim that Rupert said that, but I don't know if Rupert actually said that. And what Mqitama said was that he was, I mean, some of the language is quite difficult, but he basically said that for every black person who was killed, he threatened to kill 5 white people. And I think this goes back quite a few years ago. I mean, this is about 5 or 6 years ago, Ramakhadi, when he said those things. So I mean, there's a lot of conversations around that, and this all comes as part of that context. I mean, I remember him telling me on a different platform that he would prefer it if I went into the sea. I mean, I remember that very clearly. He said that I had no right to be here. I mean, that's his view. But my whole point is that I don't think that his comment about Rupert, as far as I know, is based on fact.
Okay. Stephen, this is a serious allegation. This is a serious matter. Why is not being followed? That the statement that why there is no one who's raising that? Why there is no one is investigating in journalism? Why there is no one who's following that statement? Because it's serious. It's serious, like the same that. But then you can quote, but you cannot quote the one that Rupert had made. You guys are not fair, and then we are listening to you. We are listening to you guys. Be fair, be straight. Don't chase a person. Chase facts.
All right, but Ramakhadi, I haven't chased Andelim Kritama at all. I mean, he chased me once, but all that's happened is you're responding to things in the news bulletin, and responding to a campaign that we've been reporting on. That's all. Nothing else.
It was not on a bulletin. I said it was a program.
It was Elvis before me, but he's. I mean, it's called Current Affairs, Ramakhadi. We speak to people. I don't think that's a campaign.
It's not you alone. Mtlatlana also. We listen to all of you.
Yeah.
You have been selected. Why don't you respond about that guy who was charged, found guilty to robbing other people as things, and then apparently you committed suicide. The story was not changed as the one that of the guy who was not sentenced.
All right, Ramakhadi, I'm sorry, I do think we've heard you on this, and let's see, maybe people agree with you, maybe not. Let's find out. Ramakhadi, thank you. Trevor on the line from Makapani. Hi, which way do you go on this?
Hi, Stephen. Just a quick one. Look, Ramakhadi is slightly right about what he's saying.
Yeah.
And the interview was about Johan Rupert was on Given Mukari's show.
Well, gosh, that was a long time ago. Yes.
Yes, there was an interview that was done by Given Mukari, and Johan said something to the effect of saying that I've got friends in the taxi industry, and I think he's right to say follow it up. I've got friends in the taxi industry, and he spoke also about the Red Berets. So he insinuated that he understands, well, that was the insinuation though, that he understands where the violence might be coming in, or where what is the origin of this violence. So I think it's a story that is not worthy to be followed, as Ramkhadi is trading.
No, thank you for that clarity, Trevor. I appreciate that. I mean, these comments were made a long time ago. That was 2017, was it?
Around that period, Stephen, yes.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the memory. Let's go to Rantisi and Khobakwani. Rantisi, hi. Zizi Kodwa.
Yes, Stephen. I'm speaking to Lisiwa Rantisi and Khobakwani. You see, Stephen. Hello?
Yes, Rantisi, we're with you.
Yes. You see, the people must understand these things, especially when we clarify of Andelim Tutema first. Andelim Tutema said a lot of things that are not taking our country forward, and we know about that. But the fact that was not in Parliament, we did not worry about it.
Well, he got 20,000 votes in the 2019 election. Less than that, even, yeah.
Yes, he was never in Parliament. Now that he's in Parliament, then he must account for those things. Like Hose from the Democratic Alliance. Hose has been there as a member of Parliament. We raise concern that this woman does not qualify to represent us in Parliament. Because once you are in a Parliament, we don't look you as a member of a political party. We look to you as a member of Parliament representing all of us. That is why it brings to attention of Zizi Kota. You see, the issue of Zizi Kota is different from the others because Zizi Kota firstly resigned as a minister and also resigned as a member of Parliament. He should have resigned as a minister because there is a number of comrades deployed in government who resign in the public eye as a minister, executive mayors, MEC, but remain as member of parliament. Because people and the media, they will follow you at the highest position. But once you resign, they forgot that those people remain in parliament. But then what I'm saying to you, lastly, the issue of this individual who are implicated in diverse areas from different political parties, we were supporting the ANC, the side as members of the ANC and in general. So, but for the fact that people chose to vote in this election, remember, Mkondo Wesizo, only party of 6 months, the party that's more than 80% of the list is implicated in corrupt activities.
I don't think it's that high. I know what you mean, Rantisi. It is there are people there, but I don't think it's that high. It's not 80%.
But look, number one, Jacob Zuma.
Yeah.
He's responsible for state capture. Is appearing before with the arms deal and so on and so on. The leader of caucus in the parliament, John Sope, he's been found wanting. He was removed, but remained the leader. And so it tells you a lot that ANC was trying, but the people of this country, it seems that they don't care about those things. They are looking for something that we don't want, and then we'll find and make sure at the end of the day we pursue what the voters are looking for. Definitely, they are not voting for. They don't care about corruption.
All right,
as long as they need you, they'll support you.
Rantisi, thank you on the line from Khobakwani. Mzi on the line from the Eastern Cape. Andile Mqitama, go for it, Mzi.
I would.
Hi, MZ. Quickly if you can, yep.
I've always been cautious about talking about racism.
Yeah.
If you notice in South Africa, the moment a white person says this, whatever he says, we conclude it's racism. But when the same thing is said by a black person, we come up with all these excuses. If what is said about the Mkama, we will call that, if it was said by a white person, it would be a racism. Now it's our fellow brothers. We come up with all this nonsense. We must go for Rupert, go to that clip. We are not talking about the issue in hand. The issue in hand is someone who is calling about the killing of other people.
Yeah.
Even our courts, the justice system is justifying this nonsense. Kill the boer, kill the farmer. And you can sing about those songs. If it was the other way around, we will call that everybody will up in arms.
Yeah. No, Mzi, thank you on the line from the Eastern Cape. It's an important point, and there is a sort of response to that in that, this is about power relationships in society, and you can think of two slogans, what white power means and what black power means. One means white supremacy, and the other really means liberation. We can see these things, we can discuss them, Mzi, and there's a lot more to discuss around them, I must say. But thank you, it's an important point. 23 after 8.
The Science of Life on SAFM.
Well, I think finally we'll be able to get more on this story today because we started talking yesterday about radioactive rhino. It's a way to protect rhinos by inserting a I think it's a radioisotope it's called, into their horns. Professor James Larkin from Wits University's Radiation and Health Physics Unit is the person in charge of it. Professor Larkin, I think we have you on a better line this morning. Good morning.
Yes, my apologies for that yesterday. I was driving down through a canyon chasing rhinos.
Did you catch them, or did they catch you?
We did. No, we did catch them. Thank you very much, and we finished off the work that we'd started the day before. And thank you for having me on your radio.
Not at all. Okay, so how does this work? What are you actually doing?
What we're actually doing is putting small quantities of radioactive material into the horn for two reasons. One, to devalue the horn in the eyes of the end user. So it's always been known that if something is radioactive, people will shy away from it. And secondly, by making it radioactive, we make it significantly easier to be able to detect horn as it's moved across borders. So, if you like, the detection of the horn as moved across the borders is kind of the second bite of the cherry. We really want people to not want to own the horn to start off with.
How do people know it's radioactive? They're not walking around with Geiger counters.
No, they're not. But we will, at the game farms, we will put up the appropriate signage. But much of it is we're going to be relying on people like yourselves, the journalists of the world, who'll be passing on the message that African rhino horn is radioactive.
So, as I understand it, a rhino horn is made out of keratin. If you want to know what that looks like, look at your fingernails and toenails.
Exactly. Yes.
And it's very compacted, which means it's actually quite sort of hard. How do you get the stuff in?
It sounds horribly barbaric, but we use a drill. You drill, you put it in, insert the pellet in, and then you close that hole up in a way that people won't then be able to detect that it's there, and then it sits there for the next 5 years, and then we'll come along and renew it after 5 years. So it's better than dehorning, because dehorning you've got to do, once a year or once every 18 months, something like that. And we can be able to say, well, we'll do it once every 5 years.
If you do it in a baby rhinoceros, does the position of it move as the horn grows?
It will move, but we won't work on baby rhinos. The horn's got to be of a certain size before I'm prepared to do any sort of work.
Sure.
I've got to protect that animal.
Okay.
And, I've spent 2 years doing that sort of dose modelling and things to make sure that what I'm doing is correct. And I've had colleagues in Colorado State University and Texas A&M University confirm my calculations.
And then the actual thing that you're injecting, I mean, where does the radioactive element come from? Is it uranium or something?
No, it's another material called cobalt that we irradiate in the reactor at Nexa, because they're partners in this, and they have been, fantastic partners helping us to develop the appropriate isotopes that we put in there. And it's. I don't want to tell you too much because I don't want to help the poachers.
No, sure. No, I'm with you. And the reactor's actually called Safari, isn't it?
Yes, Safari 1.
Yes.
Yes. So, I forget what the acronym is, but it's the guys at Nexa have been fantastic. They really are enthusiastic, and they want to help us preserve Africa's wildlife, particularly the rhino.
One radioactive element at a time.
One radioactive element at a time. One radioactive rhino at a time. But once we've finished the pilot project in 6 months' time, then we'll be sort of rolling it out to anybody who would like us to work with them. So not only here in South Africa, but we'll be looking to work with populations elsewhere.
And Professor, we've got 20 seconds left. Would it work in ivory? Would it work in elephants?
It might work in ivory. We're working with a team in the Netherlands to look at that as well, yes.
Professor James Larkin, thank you very much indeed, from Wits University's Radiation and Health Physics Unit. Radioactive rhino, you heard it here first, 27 after 8.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. Well, big day for the Proteas. Short day, though.
Yeah, very short day, big day enough. And it was the teamwork that makes the dream work. It was an inspiring display from the Proteas, as well as determination, making history by reaching their first ever T20 World Cup final, beating Afghanistan by 9 wickets. Now, speaking with Stephen earlier, cricket analyst Aslam Kota emphasized how cohesive this team has been, helping them to propel to this final.
So everything's just coming together in all the decision making and everything that they've done. And as I think I may have mentioned it to you, but they're certainly a happy camp, and the belief is there. I think 1 or 2 of the big victories that they had in between some of the closer ones against let's say the lesser nations, has certainly buoyed the team, and you can see it in their body language, in just the way they're going about their work. And those are the little telltale signs that you look for in the team, and it's all there pretty much in the open.
And the Proteas will be awaiting the winner between the match. The defending champions, England, will be taking on India today at 4:30 this afternoon. Soccer action, Georgia securing a historic win in the knockout stages of Euro 2024 with a 2-0 win over Portugal, while Turkey, Belgium, Romania and Slovakia all advancing to the last 16 as the group stage came to an end. Now, Athletics South Africa has often faced criticism for neglecting relay teams over the years. However, this year, they have made a concerted effort to prioritize the 4x100 meter relay and the 4x400 meter relay teams by organizing training camps. As part of the relay projects, the team who qualified for Paris next month will attend a 2-week training camp in France next month. ASA chairperson of the Athletes Commission, Hendrik Mohanetsi, told SABC Sport the National Federation is working tirelessly to prepare the teams for the Olympics.
Yeah, that's our plan, that relay project that we have agreed with SASCOC. The relay teams will camp in France. They will be doing the individual races there, but in the base where they will do the relays with other countries to prepare themselves. I think everybody now, after the US trials that will take place next week, everybody will now focus at the Olympics in training camps.
And that's a wrap of your Sport on Sunrise. We'll bring you more on SFM around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. More on the Mpox outbreak. That's next. You're with SFM leading the conversation, 8:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, a petition launched by concerned citizens has garnered nearly 10,000 signatures calling for the removal of newly sworn-in MP Andile Mqedama from Parliament. The petition accuses him, a member of the Mkhonto weSizwe party, of perpetuating hate speech and urges the South African Human Rights Commission to take legal action against him. The former Free State Premier Mxolisi Dukwana has welcomed his appointment as the new Speaker of the Provincial Legislature, and the City of Cape Town's Water and Sanitation Department says they've completed the maintenance work on the water infrastructure on the Cape Flats. Thousands of residents were affected when the water supply to large parts of the Cape Flats was shut down for 3 days. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, finally, the N3 North Scene between Van Buren and Galulis has been cleared. It caused a major backlog this morning coming out of Alberton and Germiston. Still busy, but it is easing and normalising pretty quickly now. The N1 through from Pretoria to Joburg stays busy between Old Joburg Road and Olifantsfontein Road this morning. No incidents, just gives you an idea of how much volume there is on a pretty quiet Thursday around the country. The N1 is full of volume and moving slowly out of Centurion into Midrand. If you're Durban bound, coming out of Pietermaritzburg, a breakdown at Market Road, that's quite a heavy backlog as you head down towards Ashburton area. Durban Spaghetti Junction, Umgena Road, looking okay. The M2 North has cleared. That early morning pressure into the roadworks has got through, so the M2 North is okay. Southbound just a little bit slow. And Cape Town, a major delay alert if you use the N7 highway coming in from Tableview to Noon side. There's a crash on the N7 southbound at the N1 on top of the N1 bridge. One lane open, major queues back through Bosmansdam and working back towards Plattercliff Road. Either hit some alternative routes or give yourself plenty of time to get through that. The other highways around Cape Town, as I mentioned, pretty gentle. Just the elevated freeway over the foreshore into the CBD that's still looking busy. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
28 minutes now to 9 the time for your mediated conversation this Thursday morning. There's been confirmation this week that the number of people who've been diagnosed with the Mpox virus here in South Africa has increased. So far, the numbers I have, 3 people have died from the disease here. There have been 16 cases identified in laboratories. The virus is spreading in several countries at the moment. Normally, it's been found in Eastern, Central and West Africa. But 2 years ago, what's now being described as a global outbreak began. So far, that outbreak has led to 98,000 cases being confirmed. 200 people have died across 117 countries. I should also just point out, because this might get important later, the disease is called Mpox, but what scientists call the underlying pathogen is still called monkeypox. The virus is related to the disease smallpox, but it's not related to chickenpox. So, how has the virus spread? What measures work to stop it from spreading? How worried do we need to be here in South Africa? First this morning, Dr. Adrian Purin is the Executive Director at the National Institute for Communicable Diseases. Then, and particularly because this disease has an impact on people with suppressed immune systems, Professor Salim Abdul Karim is the Director at the Centre for the AIDS Programme of Research in South Africa. And then how this virus has mutated and could it change again? Dr. Richard Lessels is a TB and HIV researcher and an infectious diseases doctor. We start then with the Executive Director at the NICD, Professor Adrian Purin. Professor Purin, good morning and thank you for your time.
Good morning, Stephen, and thank you for the opportunity.
This outbreak started 2 years ago. When did we first get cases here? How did it start here?
Well, we had our first cases identified as part of that multi-country outbreak in about 2002, and we only really had 5 cases, and those were really mild cases that did not require any hospitalization or specific treatments. There was a gap in 2003 when no cases were presented for diagnosis. And then starting this year, we certainly had an increase in the number of cases, and I can confirm those numbers. The first case was probably infected or identified in February. But again, because of, as you've mentioned, there are other viruses that can probably present in a similar way. These may have been missed or misdiagnosed. But I think what is key here is that we're seeing the more severe cases. Of those 16, about 13 are infected with the HIV virus. So I think what we're missing are the milder cases that are either not being diagnosed or being missed. And so it's really important that we provide the public and the health community with this type of information so that we can make sure that differential diagnosis we are able to identify cases, yes.
How do you know if you have the disease? I mean, what kind of symptoms do you have?
Yeah, so again, there's a spectrum of presentation, and the most obvious one, or the key one, is either the presentation of a specific type of rash. And again, this can just be a single vesicle up to specific areas that are affected, for example, the facial area, the mouth area within the mouth. And again, the skin specifically, there may be lesions across the body and on the hand. But in these particular outbreaks, again, the presence of rash in the perianal region is really key and pathognomonic for this type of outbreak that we are currently seeing. So what is required is really what we call close contact. Because again, they can be spread via aerosols, for example, or kissing or tight cuddling and hugging and so forth, but obviously doing sexual contact as well, where there is skin-to-skin contact, that's how this particular virus will certainly spread. There is, of course, what we call fomite spread as well, and this can be a result of contaminated materials such as clothing, bedding, for example, utensils, but that is another source of infection. But the overwhelming way in which this virus is being spread is really, as I said, quite close skin-to-skin contact. So that's the critical way in which it's being transmitted.
And just to confirm, we believe it is being transmitted case by case in South Africa. It's not people who've got it in other countries and come home. It's being transmitted here.
Yes, so there obviously was some importation, either a single case or multiple cases, and then that has certainly spread within our different social and sexual networks currently.
The virus, as I understand, it's only been found in 3 of our provinces. Does it mean it's only in those provinces, or are those just the cases that we found?
Yeah, so I think that's the key point, as I said. I think that it is possible that it may be in other provinces. So again, there needs to be heightened awareness. But this is where those 3 provinces where we are certainly finding cases. So it's really important that we increase our surveillance and the sensitivity of our surveillance, and therefore making everyone aware of what this disease is and where it is to be found, and so that we can make the right diagnosis and get a better sense. Because as you've noted, we're only finding these 16 cases on the severe spectrum of disease in HIV-infected individuals, or at least some of them who are poorly controlled, have more advanced HIV disease. And I'm sure that will be discussed in more detail with your other interviewers.
Indeed. Is it possible to predict what happens from here? During COVID, we saw people doing mathematical modeling. You could tell, when you were going to see a big increase in cases. And towards the end of COVID, those were startlingly accurate, literally almost to the day. Are you able to do that with Mpox?
Yes, so there have been some attempts at it. I think it's a bit more difficult to do that, but I think there are efforts, and I know that the European CDC certainly presented some models as to what we can certainly see. So yes, based on what we're currently seeing, it's not a virus that has the same level of R as COVID-19, and so it's the dynamics will certainly be different. So we won't be seeing the numbers that we saw in COVID, but we will certainly see an increase in the numbers, certainly. So modeling can certainly play a role, but at this time our numbers are fairly small.
The people who are susceptible to it, some cases seem to be so much more severe than others. Is it all about the immune system, or are there other aspects of the virus that mean, someone could just catch this virus and become very ill?
Yes, so I think the evidence currently shows that in persons who are well controlled with regard to HIV could certainly have the disease and have mild disease and recover from that. I think it's in the setting of where individuals who have, for example, advanced HIV disease, as I said, who may be more susceptible to infection, possibly, but I think it's more likely in those settings where there is immunocompromise that the disease manifests more severely, and it may also be associated with other comorbidities and other infections. So you can get a wide range of severe disease affecting various organ systems, and that includes, for example, the brain, the cardiac systems, the lungs, and so forth, where there is an exacerbation of the actual disease.
Professor Adrian Purim, thank you very much. Appreciate the time. Executive Director at the National Institute for Communicable Diseases. You were there, SAFM, continuing your mediated conversation this morning around Mpox. 20 minutes now to 9 the time. Professor Salim Abdul Karim is the Director at the Centre for AIDS, the AIDS Programme of Research in South Africa. Professor Abdul Karim, good to have you with us again. Good morning.
Good morning, Stephen. Good morning to all of the listeners.
The real risk, as we've heard, is around people with suppressed immune systems, and I presume in our country that really takes us to the large number of people living with HIV.
Absolutely. So if we look at Mpox, as with many other infectious diseases, it follows the very traditional iceberg kind of analysis, that what you see in the cases is just the tip. And the deaths are the very tip off the tip. But the large number of cases are the ones that are hidden. And because it's such a mild condition, you just don't see them. They come with, a bit of cough and a bit of rash and a bit of headache. So they're very non-specific symptoms. So they don't get diagnosed as Mpox. But in a few individuals who are immunocompromised, and there could be many reasons why they're immunocompromised, but in this country, HIV is one of the commonest reasons of people who have HIV but are not on treatment. And they have what is called a low CD4 count. The CD4 cells are a marker of your immune status. So if it's low, it indicates that you are immunocompromised. And so in those individuals, the disease has a very specific and harsh course that can lead to a very severe illness, and in some cases, even death, as we have seen with the 3 cases in South Africa.
If people are on medication, if they're on ARVs, should that protect them from this?
Yes, so the CD4 count, as I said, is a marker, and when you take antiretrovirals, if you have HIV and you take antiretrovirals, then the CD4 count rises again. It gets back. It doesn't get quite back to normal, but it rises quite substantially. And that means that your immune system, we say, has been reconstituted. Your immune cells are now back and ready to tackle all these infections. So once you're on antiretroviral treatment, your risk of getting opportunistic infectious diseases like tuberculosis and now Mpox becomes much lower. And so that's the critical issue, that individuals who are at risk of Mpox, if they are HIV positive and are on treatment, it will have a pretty mild course. I think it needs to be remembered that Mpox has been around in Africa for a long time. And there are outbreaks of Mpox routinely in many countries in Africa over the years. But we can contain this infection quite easily because of the slow way in which it spread. So unlike everything else we're familiar with in terms of tuberculosis or HIV or even COVID-19, this is a very slow-moving virus because it needs prolonged personal contact. And it's that contact that's needed that means that it spreads in a very slow way, so you can contain it through our very traditional public health measures, such as identifying cases and doing contact tracing, and that's how that's how countries have contained it previously, even without treatments and vaccines.
Do we know why we get these outbreaks from time to time, where they come from? I mean, why it seems to, only be in one part of the world for a while, and then suddenly we have a global outbreak like this?
So there are 2 main mechanisms. One is that it's very hard to completely eliminate Mpox from the human population because the large number of cases are asymptomatic. It's like how you get measles. You never quite eliminate measles, even though we don't see measles cases right now. But there's still a few cases around. And that every now and then it gets into a population where it can spread more and where it can present clinically. And that's when we see the outbreak. So it's not a case of if we don't have cases, it doesn't exist. It exists, but it's in that hidden iceberg. The second hypothesis is that it also jumps from animals into humans and can do that pretty easily depending on the conditions. Now, in this particular case, there are two clades of the virus, of the monkeypox virus that are spreading. And in different parts of Africa, the clades are different. In other words, these two viruses are spreading differently in different countries in Africa. And we have the one here in South Africa that's now spreading here, that's also present in a few other countries. So it probably came from one of those countries into South Africa, and then when it arrived here, it could then spread, within the population.
The disease is spread, as we've heard, through close personal contact, and as I understand it, that means many of the people who contract the disease are men who have sex with men. Is it difficult to protect that group, or to find ways to ensure, to create awareness in that group, to make sure that we can protect them from this?
Ironically, when we saw the declaration of a public health emergency of international concern by the WHO, the large number of new cases that were occurring at that time were in the gay community. So men who have sex with men, because of their prolonged, intimate, personal contact that they have with individuals, that they became the main group in which the virus was spreading. And that's what was the original declaration. That was the concern. But that group is quite amenable and readily, because we've seen how they have taken up measures against HIV, it's also a group that's quite readily amenable to interventions to reduce the spread of this virus. So if you take, for example, in New York, the way in which the gay community rallied around Mpox to bring it under control, is an indication of how community mobilization, community awareness, and when they come together to act to reduce the spread, it can be done. And I think that, we can just anticipate that in South Africa, as the cases rise, the community at highest risk will take many of those measures, as they are already doing. But we need to keep ensuring that they are well educated, well informed about what it's going to take to slow down the spread of Mpox in South Africa.
Is there anything else government can do to slow down the spread? I mean, we've got various measures, the border management agencies looking at things. Is there anything else? I mean, obviously communication and education, as you've mentioned.
Yeah, I think the main issue and how this virus is brought under control is really through the two key elements, which is case identification and then contact tracing. So once you have identified a case, you have to do, what they call the shoe leather epidemiology. You have to trudge the streets. You have to find each of the contacts that person has had, because those are the individuals who are likely to have either spread it to him or her, or are the ones who are going to get it. So those individuals, we need to isolate them for a short period while they are infectious, if they are, and that's what will stop the spread of the virus. And just remember, many countries in Africa, including South Africa, when we had it 2 years ago, you bring it under control quite readily and easily because it's such a slow-moving virus. So government just needs to carry on doing the basic public health measures that it's doing. Identify cases and then go to all their contacts and prevent the ongoing spread from those contacts.
Professor Salim Abdul Karim, thank you very much indeed. Director of the Centre for the AIDS Programme of Research in South Africa. In a moment, Dr. Richard Lessels, an infectious diseases doctor from CRISP at UKZN. 11 minutes to 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Just a reminder, the N3 north at Galuli's big truck crash in this morning, which backed everything up, has been cleared. That traffic is busy, but it is moving a lot better than it was earlier. Coming out of Pretoria to Joburg, still queues on the N1, Rigel to the R21, and then Old Joburg down to about sort of New Road before you feel like you got a bit of clear air. Now, a couple of really big delays on your way towards Durban this morning using the N3. The road is currently closed, approaching the Howick North Tweedy exit Lions River territory. A truck is overturned right across both lanes. It's spilt its load as well. It is going to take a while to clear the scene. And then there's an enormous backlog of traffic, trucks and vehicles stacking back towards Balgowan. So if you're on your way down through the Midlands towards Durban, driving a passenger vehicle, off-ramp at Moy River, off-ramp at Nottingham Road, off-ramp at Balgowan, get yourself onto the R103, the alternative route, and head through to Howick. That way, if you're driving a truck, you might want to just hold things back a bit before you arrive into what is effectively a long operation stack, and trucks look likely to be stacked there for some time. Certainly this morning. Once you pop out the other side of Pietermaritzburg, there's breakdown at Market Road, between Market Road and Ashburton, and that's causing a delay. And Cape Town, the crash on the N7 south at the N1 highway bridge has everyone squeezing into a single lane, so it's a big backlog almost as far as Plattercliff Road this morning. N7 on your way towards the M1 or towards Goodwood, heavy backlogs. N1 into town, slow over the elevated freeway, pushing traffic back towards sort of Marine Drive territory. And don't forget that blasting closure today, being a Thursday, 3 p.m. until 5 p.m. The N2 between Makunda, Grahamstown and Fish River Pass will be completely closed. It's a long detour, sort of Makunda down through Bathurst, down to Port Alfred, and then the R72 along the coast back up to Petty. So make sure you go before 3 using the N2 or travel after 5 once the blast and cleanup has been completed. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Am I left or right-brained? I'm leaning right. Right? However, I do have some left-brain tendencies. Perhaps I'm left-brained with right-brain tendencies. Am I overthinking this? I don't want to be caught underthinking it. Or maybe I'm overthinking about underthinking the overthinking. Which am I?
At RMB, the simple answer is both. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity that doesn't make you choose, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Johannesburg Water is concerned about the current high water consumption, which is causing a severe strain on the entity's systems and threatens the sustainability of consistent bulk supply. Play your part in conserving water by following these simple tips. Reporting leaks and burst pipes. Do not leave taps dripping and repair your internal leaks. Wash your car on the grass, as this will water your lawn at the same time and shorten your showering time. Together, we can reduce water wastage and protect this precious resource. Brought to you by Johannesburg Water, a water utility that cares.
In the city of Maiduguri in northeast Nigeria, Stacy Dooley meets Falmata, kidnapped by Boko Haram at age 13, forced to marry 3 times, and finally strapped to a suicide belt and sent out on a bombing mission. Astonishingly, Falmata managed to escape to tell her painful story. Tune into Nigeria's Female Suicide Bombers, Thursday the 27th of June at 9 p.m. Then, stay tuned for Louis Theroux Life on the Edge at 10 p.m. as Louis reflects on the criminal justice system in the USA, which has more prisoners than any country in the world. Channel your inner curiosity with BBC Primetime Documentaries. Thursdays from 9 till 11 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
7 minutes to 9. Good morning. Continuing your mediated conversation this morning around Mpox. Dr. Richard Lessels is a TB and HIV researcher and infectious diseases doctor from CRISP at UKZN. Dr. Lessels, good morning and thank you for your time.
Good morning, Stephen. Good morning to the listeners.
We remember from COVID the phrase a variant. We've heard in this conversation the phrase, I don't know if it's clade or clate. What is that?
Yeah, exactly. Prof. Abdul Karim mentioned the 2 clades of this virus. And to all intents and purposes, Stephen, this is a very similar meaning to variants as we're familiar with for SARS-CoV-2. So essentially what we mean is this is the same virus, but these 2 clades are genetically different, and those genetic differences have some implication for how the virus behaves. So these two clades have slightly different behavior in terms of particularly the disease that they cause and the severity of the disease. So classically, what we know of as clade 1 virus, which has classically been associated with Central African countries, particularly the Democratic Republic of Congo, that is associated with higher risk of mortality than the clade 2 virus, which were classically in West African countries and then spread to cause this global outbreak over the past couple of years.
Does Mpox create new clades or variants as quickly as COVID did?
No, because these are the two clades that have been present really for decades now. And as we said, until a couple of years ago, this was largely restricted to Central and West Africa, where there's what we call an endemic pattern of disease. So there's the reservoir of the virus in animals, usually in small mammals, and then spread to humans from contact with those animals, and then limited human-to-human transmission. But what we've seen over the past few years, and when we look back, we can see signals of it for a few years before this global outbreak, we can see that this virus has become more efficient at spreading between humans, so from person to person. And we can see signals in the genetic code when we dig into the genetic code with our sequencing techniques. We see signals in the virus of how it's become more efficient at spreading from person to person.
I presume it could evolve again in some way, and if it spreads more and there are more cases of it, that might mean, I don't know, is it more likely that it would evolve or mutate again?
Well, there's certainly that possibility, and that depends on how well we control these outbreaks and how many people become infected. The other thing that's possible is, of course, that we see some people having very prolonged infections with Mpox. Again, something similar to what we saw with COVID. And there may be the opportunity for the virus to evolve again within an individual and then to spread. So that is another reason why we must get control of this virus and must do all the public health measures that you've heard about to prevent further spread of this virus.
There are treatments available. They're not registered here. I know that there's one being used under a special authorization. But developing some kind of vaccine, I made the point at the beginning that, as far as I know, this is related to smallpox. We have a vaccine for smallpox, a very effective one. Could that help us develop a vaccine against Mpox?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there are vaccines available, and these are vaccines that were developed for smallpox and Mpox. So these are very similar viruses, and the vaccines will work for both. And there is a hope that we will get some vaccines to help with the public health control of this outbreak in South Africa. One of the key things, and just to add to what Prof. Abdul Karim mentioned, when you asked why are we seeing this global re-emergence of this virus, one of the key things is because the susceptible population in all countries is now much bigger, because people who had vaccination against smallpox have protection against Mpox, at least a degree of protection against Mpox. And so part of the explanation for why this virus has now become more efficient at spreading person to person in human populations is because most people under the age of 40, 45 are susceptible because they haven't received smallpox vaccination.
So, in other words, I think it was 1979 or so. Someone told me in Southern Africa, up until then, you were vaccinated against smallpox. If you were born after that, then you may have less protection.
Exactly. So everybody under that age is kind of fully to Mpox, and so that's opened up the kind of environment for this virus to be able to spread person to person more efficiently.
Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Richard Lessels is an infectious diseases researcher at CRISP at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Bringing an end to your mediated conversation today. My thanks also, of course, to Professor Salim Abdul Karim, Director at the Centre for the AIDS Programme of Research in South Africa, and starting us off today, the Executive Director at the National Institute for Communicable Diseases, Professor Adrian Purin. Well, I finally feel I think I understand where we are with this disease at the moment. We will be back with you tomorrow from Mdu, Stanza, Melissa, myself, Zelma. Look after yourself. You're with SFM leading the conversation. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
In our top stories, a petition to remove newly sworn-in MK Party MP and case against KZN IEC official to continue. Good morning. A petition launched by concerned citizens has garnered nearly 10,000 signatures calling for the removal of newly sworn-in MP Andile Mqitama from Parliament. The petition accuses Mqitama, a member of the Umkhonto weSizwe Party, of perpetuating hate speech and urges the South African Human Rights Commission to take legal action against him. This comes after a video taken 5 years ago at a BLF event went viral, showing him making threatening statements about white people. AfriForum CEO Kali Creel has expressed his support for the petition.
Even in the lower courts, that this kind of behavior can be seen as figurative speech. It's something that's not acceptable, and that is why we're now going to the Constitutional Court with regard to the Julius Malema Kill the Boer song, because also in that regard, it was said that it was figurative speech. But the problem is with that, one should not look at what people say the intention is when they say that. We should see what a reasonable person would feel when they hear that. And if you hear this kind of statements that children and women should be killed, it is harmful, it is hurtful.
Meanwhile, Mqitama says he's not concerned about the calls for his removal from Parliament, as he was previously exonerated for